Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 224. We've got some new additions right now to the podcast night. We have some food. Our special guest tonight is Tony Tanner. He is the owner of the Butcher and Grocer here in the Columbus area. We're going to learn a little bit about what he does, what he's done, what it's all about. More in part two, but he also brought for part one a nice bottle of Jefferson's Reserve Twin Oak, and we're pairing that up with the Liga Undercrown 10, also called the All Dekk'd Out Liga Undercrown. So I want to thank our sponsors before we get too far into it. Thank you, Tinderbox at Easton, for that Drew Estate product, the Undercrown 10. They're in Columbus, Ohio. Check them out. They have that blend, and I think 3 sizes right now. We're smoking the Toro this evening, but there's other Vitolas as well. Check them out. Again, Tinderbox at Easton, Columbus, Ohio. Altadis USA, the second cigar of the night is the Romeo y Julieta Clemenciao, however you want to say it. But that is our second cigar from Altadis USA. So thank you very much, Josh Bentley and everyone at Altadis USA for the continued support. And then the BS Cigar Company, the gold and silver are also available now. 3 different sizes in each of the blends. The gold is Plasencia and the silver is Espinosa. Also want to thank you guys for the support. Patreon.com/BourbonandBS podcast. We appreciate all that monthly support and the contributions to the podcast so that we can keep this thing going. And hopefully you guys continue to enjoy it. And also, if you want to buy a bottle or throw a one-time contribution to the podcast, Venmo at Bourbon and BS. So that is the way to get anything towards us. And again, with the Venmo, if you want us to buy a certain bottle and have us try that, we can go ahead and do that. There you go. There's the lighter. And then if you like the shirts, so like Nate's got the BS Raglan, the 3/4 sleeves and the white, black, and gold. I've got the Pour One More, Light Up Another. We'll figure this out together. I had 2 people today comment on the podcast shirt and just like looked down at it and just started laughing. Like, I like that. I said, well, you can get it at buyjack.com/bourbonbs. I sell a couple here. So check that out for some apparel and swag. All right, Tony. We got Tony Tanner sipping on the Jefferson's Reserve. I always have to say, like, remember this, Jefferson's. I always normally would say Jefferson Reserve, or I hear it say Jefferson, or hear it told like that. So this is the Jefferson's Reserve Twin Oak. You were looking for something else, and then what happened? You were like, I can't find this other bottle.
Yeah. So my favorite bourbon, the one that I keep around, well, I thought I kept it around all the time, but apparently I don't, is Rowan's Creek.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just brought into Columbus. I mean, we carry it at the restaurant Cleaver in Grandview. We're only down to about that much left in our last bottle. So I went there first to see if I could buy one off of me. And
turns out,
got on the Ohio Liquor Control website and I can't find it anywhere. So I think you said Buffalo Trace is almost uninhabitable right now.
Yeah, well, and that's Buffalo Trace. Willet, I think actually I misspoke earlier. Willet, I think, makes Rowan's Creek.
Yeah.
So yeah, Willet, Buffalo Trace, anything like that. We just got Willet products in the state of Ohio, and it's just dry. I mean, nowhere to be found.
Well, that's part of the reason why so many people didn't open up in Ohio for a long time, is because they couldn't make enough to keep up with our growing population. But so anyway, I got the list from you of what's been on, because I wanted to have something that you guys hadn't had before, and I was going through your list. Actually, I was trying to put in an Excel document so it was a little easier for you, but I couldn't. My technical
Nate's
ability.
got that one.
I have the Excel document with all the
the technical ability is a little off. So I was going through the list, and I'm just browsing, and then I was trying to come up with something. And I looked up on my filing cabinet in my office, and this bottle was sitting there. It's been there probably for it's been over a year. Nice. And don't ask me why I didn't open it. And so I looked it up real quick, and you didn't have it on there. So I was like, good. I don't even have to go to the liquor store.
Well, I'm happy. I've never had this. I do like Jefferson's Reserve products. We've had a few on the podcast before, but I mean, I think we've had a couple sips of this, and it's good.
I think we've had the Ocean Age to See, and then I think episode 1 was the chef's collaboration.
Yes, very first one. Yep. So We're also, like I said, smoking the Undercrown 10 All Decked Out. It's their 10-year anniversary blend, so we can talk about that as well here. But let's start with the whiskey. Nate, did you find anything about this? I found just a brief amount of information on this bottle.
Sorry, we have someone in the studio audience. Wait until
a little bartender here.
Wait until we go live to get a pour.
He was gonna wait till we went live to get to the. You want some more cheese there? And yeah.
Don't mind if I do. No. Yeah. So Jefferson's is it's actually distilled by a company called Kentucky Artisan Distillery. They do 3 brands. They have Jefferson's, High Spire Rye, and Whiskey Row. Those are the 3 brands that they make. So Jefferson's is something that they're doing. Probably the biggest name of those 3 that they do.
It's probably the most recognizable. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this one, the Twin Oak, and I think Tony, you looked this up probably when you got the bottle. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they basically carve into the barrel staves for a second barrel and flash char it, and it kind of does that toastiness of those grooves in the staves. So it just creates more surface area for the bourbon to touch into the oak. And so it kind of does that second aging part a little bit faster, but because it's a toastedness instead of a char, that's where typically you'll get a little bit more of those vanilla characteristics as opposed to the caramel that you would get from the char.
Yeah, I mean, it says when I looked it up here as well, it was released in August of 2018.
Yeah,
and it's kind of a collaboration with Jefferson's Reserve and then a family-owned cooperage called Independent Stave Company out of Missouri. And the barrels, like you said, they basically groove the staves. And that's what Tony was saying before. And that's, again, you're spot on. It's for more surface area, is what it says.
We had another one a few months ago that did something like that as well on the second barreling. Can't remember what it was off the top of my head. But
I don't either.
Yeah, but they carved grooves into the second barrel in order to increase the surface area.
So this was, finished for 4 months in those barrels, and it was a 10-year bourbon, Kentucky bourbon from Jefferson's Reserve. So they took that bourbon, basically 10-year bourbon, finished it in this independent stave company's barrel that they did this grooving with, and had it sit for another 4 months. So very interesting. It sounds like it was a second virgin oak. It wasn't like a finishing in a it was still a new type of barrel. It was still a new barrel. Yeah.
Well, it's a regift. I didn't buy it, so
that's fine. I mean, you have to.
If we're going to go full Seinfeld
now, who gave it to you? Then you want to give some credit?
Don't remember.
Well, that's just rude. Now
I want to think
that's where you went south.
I think it's one of our farmers gave it to me. So thanks,
Rob. One of your farmers. Thank you, Tony, for bringing it.
I really do pick up the vanilla though, probably more than anything out of this thing. It's nice.
It is. No, it's 45.1, right?
Yes, so 90.2 proof, which to me it comes across a little hotter than that. It's sharp.
Yeah.
Well, that could also be because we were eating some delicious treats off of this charcuterie board.
Mm.
No, that's spice from the. Yeah, no, I'm absolutely wrong. What'd you have? Did you have the andouille?
I did not have the andouille.
What'd you have?
I had the
banner here.
I had the cheese, summer sausage, and the kielbasa.
They have spice.
Yeah. So this is our snack stick, beef snack stick. So it's got a little bit of pepper spice. I wish I could zoom
in, but I can't.
That's all right. And then here's our andouille, mortadella, capicola, our kielbasa, regular old bologna, and then this cheese, we call it cracked cheese, and it's from Milton Creamery. It's you get the little crystals in it from the.
Explain the crystals. You were trying to.
So it's basically the sugars crystallized in there, the milk sugars. So you get this.
How
little
old
crunch
is that
in there.
cheese?
I don't. It's not very old. I think it's only
aged?
a couple years.
Okay,
maybe even less than that. But it's our most popular cheese we carry. People just love it.
I might be cocaine. I'm serious because you say cracked cheese, and it's like, oh yeah. All joking aside, like
you can eat a whole block of it.
Yeah. Well, you shouldn't.
You should not, but I have.
It's a rough week after that.
It's a rough couple of days. But everything on this board we make in-house. So our meat processing plant's over by the airport, and that's where we make all of we call it our value add stuff. So all the sausages and everything are made out there.
we say value add. I mean, we'll get into this a little bit more in
Yep.
part 2, but I mean, this is not your main thing. Your main thing is what?
Whole animal butchery.
Whole
Yep.
animal butchery.
Yep.
Got it. Before we get too far down that road, and I'm not going to talk with a mouthful, even though I'm just staring at that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It is very good.
Thank you.
And we'll get into, again, if you guys want to learn more about that, if you're in the Columbus area, you're traveling, do you ship? It's all local.
It's all that we
Got it.
prefer that you come into our shop.
Yeah.
It's tough to think about trusting a shipping company to make
Yeah.
sure this arrives cold and
Yeah. No, I agree.
intact and stuff. So
I understand. So it's Jefferson's Reserve Twin Oak. What do you guys think of this?
well, I'm drinking it faster than you guys are, so I guess I like it.
You also started first. By the way, lovely glasses.
Yes, we were gifted some
Yeah.
glasses here.
All future guests.
All future guests. I may have to alternate between your glass
Well,
and the
you-
BS.
yeah,
I'm just saying.
makes sense.
I mean, but
Maybe every other one.
this is nice. But yeah, what do you guys think of this? I mean, yeah, it's obviously. I mean, I think it's good. I mean, from a surface
Mm-hmm.
level, it's a very enjoyable pour.
It's got good flavor. I get a lot of oak on it, along with that vanilla, and then a little bit of an apple because of like the brightness. There's a little
Yeah, there's some
tartness
fruit
to it
in
as
there,
well.
Mm-hmm.
It's super smooth. It's way smoother than it's it's not very complex, I guess is the best way to put it. Just kind of,
Okay.
to me, it's just there, you know. and
You say it's
like
not complex.
Yeah.
It doesn't like have this finish that
way
changes a
crazy
whole lot. Yeah.
nuance, yeah.
It's got for me, it's got some spice on the palate, but not on the finish. Like the finish is smooth. There's no hug going down or anything, or burn going into the chest or anything like that. But there's a decent amount of spice as well on the palate that I get.
Yeah. It's again, I think I didn't have a sip until I had a piece of which one was it? The Andouille.
Andouille, yeah.
Yeah.
Which
so
is, that's a spicy sausage.
I mean, I feel like I kind of tainted that. That's a rookie mistake there on me, but it is nice. That what we say, 90.2 proof.
Yeah.
It may drink I don't know if it drinks hotter than that. I think it has a nice warmth to it. So I mean, and we've talked
like
about
a
that
baking
before.
spice warmth.
Yeah. As I'm sweating because it's hot in here and humid, but
It's humid.
no, but I think we've talked about that where we've had the higher proof stuff isn't always going to drink hotter. The lower proof stuff is not always going to drink like easier and no spice, no heat. You know, a lot of it has to do with, and did you find the mash bill on this? I did not.
The mash bill's undisclosed.
Okay. Well, that's
for
why I
this.
didn't find it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I mean, I read some estimates, but no, confirm, hey, here's the press release. This is what it is.
Yeah.
But the one estimate I saw was a 60-30-10.
60-30. Okay. That's rude. Pass the bottle. I'm going to have a second glass. We get into it. It's hot. I got to stay hydrated. No, we do have water as well. Don't worry. I do like this. It's in their classic bottle, right? This is the same shape bottle as all of theirs.
Yep.
Just to look at it, you've got laser. I'm not if you want to pour some here, but it has on there, obviously the Jefferson's Reserve screened on there, and then it says Twin Oak Custom Barrel, very rare. And I'll just read off of this here. Our custom designed Wave Barrel creates an innovative and unique environment to finish our fully mature Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey. The proprietary flash charred toasted groove staves increase the surface area of the barrel, allowing more bourbon to come in contact with the oak. The result is a seasoned, double-barreled whiskey that is both smooth and well-balanced. And then it's got all the nitty-gritty on the side sticker here. You can recycle this for 15 cents in Vermont. That's good to know. Other than that, it's pretty basic. You got a little neck, whatever you want to call that, decal there. The website on there, and then again, the Twin Oak Custom Barrel.
It's a nice cork, too.
Nice cork. Yeah. Sorry to hold that back.
That's all right.
I mean, it's rude. I was just, But yeah, I mean, I think this is one. If you guys see it, this is coming in at in Ohio, $79.99.
Yep.
So it's not incredibly expensive. It's not your average price whiskey.
I think that's up there with the Ocean. That's about the same price as the Ocean.
What you'd expect, right? Yeah.
Well, these guys are I mean, every business is struggling in one way or another, but with some of these guys, it's the glass that they can't get.
It's all little things, right?
They got plenty of juice,
yeah,
but nothing to put it in.
Yeah,
and it's like
we ran into that in the cigar industry. You got companies they have the cigars, they don't have the boxes, or they have the boxes, they don't have hinges. Bands. At one point, we couldn't get Zippo lighter fluid because they didn't have the cans.
Yeah, aluminum and steel. Well, when we opened up this other shop, we had to change out one of our compressors because they couldn't get one valve for this whole thing. We had to change out the whole cooler, and I called the lady that was selling it to us, and I said, I don't understand what you're saying. She's like, there's just this one valve that they can't. And I'm like, are you telling me in all 50 of our wonderful states, there's not one company that can make this valve? Well, it's proprietary, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, if you can get the schematics, I can just run down to Bexley High School, give it to some kid, and it can do it on a 3D printer. I guarantee it. Yeah. It's like,
just find someone with a CAD machine.
Yeah, it's super easy. But it's been crazy.
It has. And so, yeah, like you said, with the bottles, the cigar industry, everything, it's been very frustrating.
Well, now, you can't get anything made. And now we're paying $5 and whatever it is now in gas. And at this point, people are trying to decide, are they going to go out to dinner or go to work? I mean, they got to put gas in their cars.
Are they going to drive for vacation or pay their mortgage?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's getting to that point. But I do want to stay a little bit on track here. No, it happens.
Regress? Is that what I did?
No, not at all.
Digress.
Thank you.
As I'm drinking this more and more, I'm starting to get like a little bit more sweetness and caramel front on it. Like the more I drink it, and I'm still in my first glass.
What are you trying to say?
You drink like I smoke cigars.
Jesus.
Do you need help?
I don't think so. I can drink just fine, thank you. We're smoking. We can kind of bounce back and forth here because I think I kind of was talking more drinking, not smoking as much. This is a newer cigar, newer blend. That's an extension of the Undercrown, which it says on the box Liga Undercrown, but I mean it's commonly called just Undercrown, right? The original Undercrown came out, and it was supposedly because a lot of the factory workers loved the Liga Privada line, which is the private blend, or Liga Privada number 9, Liga Privada T52 followed that. But the Undercrown was basically a blend that was, as the story goes, created in a sense with the rollers and the factory workers at Drew Estate as something that they would be able to smoke. I was back in that time, I felt a little deceived because I wasn't in the industry. I was just a cigar smoker. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's like a poor man's Liga. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I smoked it. I'm like, this tastes nothing like a Liga Privada number 9. Like, what are you talking about? And I did not like the original Liga or Undercrown. That's now called the Undercrown Maduro. It's grown on me a bit. They've extended the line with an Undercrown Shade, which is a Connecticut Shade, lighter, milder blend. And then they came out with an Undercrown Sun-Grown. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be kind of right there. What's that?
The red band.
The red band. And then this came out last year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 2021, because the original one came out in 2011. And they really dressed this one up. I mean, they have a little bit of that Drew Estate flair on it where they call it the All Dekk'd Out, which is DEKK'.
I was showing him the footband earlier.
So you have that side of it, but then the box is beautiful. I don't have a box with us tonight, but the box is absolutely beautiful. You have the classic Undercrown band, but it's like beefed up with like a background band on it. It has the 10 underneath the logo for the Undercrown. And then you've got this beautiful, I mean, you have a little footband like we were talking about. It says All Dekk'd Out along with that. And then you have this really, if you check out our social media or you go on anything, look this up, it comes with a very unique dressing on it, where it has a yellow thin ribbon across the head of the cigar, tucked in the
underneath the band,
primary band. And so when I first looked at it, I'm like, what am I supposed to cut through this? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I've never seen anything like it.
Do I just rip it and rip through the band?
So I'm like,
you're looking at it like, what the fuck do I do with this? Like, do I smoke it with that? Like, I mean, am I supposed to like cut around it? Like, you just don't know. But it does. It kind of lifts out of there really easy.
Just awesome.
What are you thinking about?
It's like a thong. You just move it to the side.
And Dimmick, yes, it is a perfect night for the garage. Wow. Nate, I'm more impressed than anything on that comment. That was
I've
nice.
never done this before, but my man Chuck, who runs our Grandview store, is watching. So hi, Chuck.
What's up, Chuck? Yeah, Nate, you threw me off with that one. I did not expect that coming out of your mouth.
Did I transition okay to a different subject?
No, I'm still on the last one. So you either take it off or push it to the side, the yellow ribbon on the end of the cigar. And anyways, this cigar, they did tweak it a bit. This is a different blend. This is a Mexican San Andreas wrapper, which I couldn't guess the blends on some of Drew Estate stuff. Like their Undercrown line, the Liga Privada line, they're pretty unique. The Liga Privada number 9 is a very unique blend that no one ever talks about what it's made up.
What is the makeup of that?
I know you're gonna ask me. I don't know if I'll look it up here, but this is gonna be Mexican San Andreas wrapper leaf that we're gonna see on the outside, which I think is actually a pretty San Andreas wrapper leaf. It's not as like that kind of the rugged, kind of like the hardy looking leaf. It's not going to be, it's actually pretty smooth. There's a little bit of vein to it, but I mean, it's got a little sheen to it, which I don't see very often on a San Andreas Mexican. Yeah. So you got that. And then underneath that is that Connecticut broadleaf.
I was going to ask if there's broadleaf in this. Yeah. Because when that cigar just sits there, because it wasn't too long ago that we did the Nica Rustica, and which is a broadleaf, and that thing just billows smoke, even when it's just sitting in the ashtray or in your hand. This one does the same thing. Like there's just a lot of smoke that comes off this cigar.
It does. And the Liga Privadas are known for that. So I think there's got to be some shared tobacco as far as the broadleaf on that. I'm looking up the Liga 9 real quick. That has a broadleaf wrapper. I know that, but the rest of it, of course, they don't have it. Oh, it's got a Brazilian binder and then a Dominican and Honduran filler.
No Nicaraguan in the filler on that. That's surprising.
Let me check it out again here. Second sight.
No, keep going. Go ahead.
Oh, shit. Goddamn buttons. How do you hit so many buttons on a device that has no buttons? What the fuck is that about? Do you know what I'm saying?
Because there's no buttons. That's wow.
These keep popping up. There's like new buttons every time you pop-ups suck. Anyways.
And it takes you to some pay site and you're like behind their firewall and you can't get back out.
Yeah. Perfect. But yeah, so what do you guys think of this cigar? The Undercrown 10, All Dekk'd Out.
I like it.
Yeah? And you typically smoke what kind of cigars?
Man, I've been on those nubs, those Connecticut nubs for a while now. They're just perfect. But the flavor on this is nice. It kind of marries up with this.
I think it does.
Bourbon really good.
I think the spice from this cigar kind of offsets some of that sweetness that we get from the whiskey, but then it also enhances some of the spice that I was getting from it as well.
This is, I think, the most balanced cigar that has an Undercrown band on it.
I agree.
I know I'm usually not the one to compare it to other ones in the line, whether I like it better or worse. But of the four, this is my favorite. I was very pleasantly surprised the first time I smoked it. It has, if I was to pick it apart and like try to find something that I don't like about it, the only thing is it's got, to me, a little bit of a drier finish. And I don't know if that's the San Andreas wrapper on it. I don't know exactly where it's coming from, but I kind of get a little dryness. Maybe it's the humidity, maybe it's the whiskey, maybe it's the different meats and cheeses. But I really like this. It's a richer, you've got some, I hate to use those notes, but like that, it is like that leathery, woody type of
dark earth.
Darker. Yeah.
You sold me one of these another time, but I can't remember which one it was.
One of the Liga 10s or Undercrown 10s?
Yeah. Not this one, but one from this company, and I can't remember.
The Drew Estate, I mean, so you've got the Undercrown line, if that's what you're talking about. We've had like the Undercrown Maduro, and you have been smoking like when you have time. Like, so Tony comes in the shop. That's how we all met, and at Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. And if you've got time that you want to be out of your office or out of the shop, you're like, just give me a big cigar.
Yeah, if I have to do the bills, I was like, I need something to help me through this.
Rents office space,
Yeah.
one cigar at a time. So you might have had like the Undercrown Gordito, like that's the Maduro.
I wish I could remember.
But I mean,
start writing these things down.
It might have been one of these. The thing I like about this, when they came out with all this impressive packaging, even overdoing the original Undercrowns, when we got it in, I'm like, all right, let's price this out, see where it's coming in off the invoice. Just a hair more than the core line. I mean, it's less than the Liga Privada line, which I was really pleased. I thought they were going to come out with an Undercrown that was going to be in that like $15 to $20 range. And this didn't do it. This is coming in. I think it's around that kind of 11 to 13 MSRP. So you're looking at, depending on your tobacco tax, like the double Corona is like $14.95 or something like that. So on our shelf, and the Robusto comes in, I think, what is that, $12.95? Yeah. So I mean, it's a little over average price cigar, but I mean, it's not anything crazy. And I think it smokes really above its price point.
I remember there was a customer that came in and they loved the Undercrown, and you had sold them on the Undercrown 10. He's like, well, what's so special about it that's $2 more than the regular Undercrown? He's like, well, smoke it. And so he smoked it. And normally this is a guy that comes in and just grabs cigars and leaves. He actually sat down to smoke this cigar. And as he got through it, you asked him how it was, and he goes, those first couple inches I wasn't too excited about, and then all of a sudden this cigar started getting really good, and you're like, yeah, that's that $2 extra.
I don't remember that, but it sounds like something I would say for sure.
It was Brian Granger.
Definitely the Brian Granger. I had a guy sitting there today. He didn't know I kind of knew the person that came in. He's like, "You got any recommendation?" I was like, "Typically." He's like, "You have the same like demeanor towards everyone." Like, yeah, typically. Sometimes I'm like super polite, and I don't know you. And
right, like the first time I met you, I remember.
Yeah, it's changed since then. But I do think the pairing goes fairly well together, and we can talk about that as we get into as we round out part one here. But I like the construction of this cigar. I think that the marketing behind it, the branding is top notch. Have you seen the box, Tony?
I don't think I have. Huh?
It's nice. It's like kind of a bluish box, but it's like wood grain blue, and it's got decals kind of everywhere on it. But it's classy enough. It's again, the only thing that really kind of Drew Estate has a little bit of like, so they make acids as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
They've got swag that's like really colorful and kind of, I'd say, out there for like it's not something that you would expect like a traditional cigar company to have, like these bright neon colors, or like
that water tower thing that they would sell.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's something that, so they got just that all decked out part of it. The rest of it's just super classy, in my opinion. Yeah. It's very well marketed. Nice. Yeah. And the bands, obviously, I mean, the embossment on it is just really top notch as well. So I say they knocked it out of the park, at least with the branding. It's whether or not you like the flavor of the cigar, if it's constructed well for you. But I mean, to me, this is burning very nicely. Haven't had to relight it a whole lot other than when I sat it down for a long period of time. I mean, I can, like, when I'm looking down the table at you guys, and I don't know if you can see it on the video feed, guys, but I mean, it's just like Nate said, there's like billowing smoke.
It never doesn't stop.
Yeah, I'm like looking past, and it's just like more and more smoke just coming up, and mine's even coming back a little bit in my face here. So,
I mean, the good news is it smokes so much that when it's not, you're going to have to relight it.
That's true.
They're saving that one.
It's very true.
Wonder if it's still lit. Yep.
How do you guys think this goes well together or not? I know, Tony, you kind of alluded that you think that this does go fairly well together.
It's hitting right for me.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
I think the richness of this cigar overpowers some of the more subtle notes that are in the whiskey, but overall, like the strength and spice of this cigar, especially that dryness that you talked about with this cigar, it kind of makes your palate a little bit more receptive to the sweeter notes in this whiskey. It makes
sweeter and vanilla.
It makes those notes of the whiskey stand out more.
Are you getting like more of that vanilla from that when you?
I'm definitely getting more like, not necessarily vanilla, a little thicker, like a caramel up front.
Caramel, that could be, yeah.
Well, the fruitiness that I found in that when I first tried it before I had the cigar,
the
fruitiness to me is kind of gone now.
Yeah,
because
this subdues what that's. I think that's what Nate's kind of getting at, is like kind of subdues
the subtle notes, but like
sweeter,
the more bold notes that are in this,
like
that sweetness, that little bit of spice. I think that is enhanced by this cigar, but those subtle notes kind of get overpowered by the cigar.
And I don't think that the whiskey on the other side really takes anything away from the cigar. If anything, it's kind of one of those, you go back and forth to it, and that dryness from the cigar does actually get covered up by a little bit of the sweeter notes of the whiskey. So it's actually, I think it actually enhances the cigar a little bit, because that was my only drawback on this blend, is that it does kind of have that slight cotton mouth at the end of the finish.
Which I think we say that a lot with San Andreas.
That's what I was saying. I don't know if it was that exactly. Again, I mean, different blends, different filler tobaccos, you're going to have different things hit your palate differently. Doc Swinson's.
The picture that Ray posted earlier.
Gotcha. So for those listening only on the audio, or if you guys are just tuning in now for the first time on Facebook or YouTube, we do try to monitor the comments. We've got, usually, we're not huge. I mean, at times we've spiked at like 40 or 50 viewers, but I mean, typically it's like 10 to 20. So we try to, you guys, please, like I have at the bottom of the screen, share, like, comment, review it. I mean, you can do the Patreon thing. We love that. Obviously, I don't want to deter you, because that does help us put this on without putting any money out of pocket. So hopefully you guys enjoy it to that point, or the Venmo thing, or buying the shirts and all that stuff. But sharing this and on your Facebook feed, or telling people about it, I mean, that's really where it makes it more enjoyable for us, and obviously, hopefully for you guys as well, just because of the comments. So, I mean, we got the Bourbon and BS community page on Facebook. That's 1,500 plus members strong, which is great. Aaron Garner, who actually is here in town. You know that name? Aaron Garner. He works for another butcher in town.
Oh, I think I met him in the shop.
I think you have.
Yeah.
He says it's still early and getting interesting already. I think that's when we were going on a tangent there.
I think he posted that right after my comment. Which, if my mom is still watching, sorry.
Yeah, that could have been it. That could have been it. I love that. She was watching. She commented on your shirt earlier.
Yeah, that was a subtle jab, because so when I first got,
it was a subtle jab. The shirt, or the comment you made
when she said that she liked
what was
my
the
shirt.
Comment you made again?
No.
Okay.
When she said nice shirt,
There was a hand motion in there.
No. When she said nice shirt.
Oh yeah, for that, yeah.
So when she first made that, like after we first launched the Patreon, she made a one-time large donation.
Yes.
And so she got a shirt for that.
Yes.
And she didn't really want that shirt, so she gave it to me. But then when we came out with the 3/4,
she likes those.
She wants one of the 3/4, and she's like, "Yeah, you can buy me one of those for Christmas." I'm like, "Okay." So
$35.
I know it's
Unless
not Christmas.
Patreon,
it's not Christmas yet.
Wow. Victoria, we'll see what we can do to get you a shirt here. Nate can get you something even nicer for Christmas then.
All the boys will throw in.
Yeah. Everyone throw in $3. We'll get it taken care of.
I can buy her a shirt.
I'm just kidding. It's payback for that comment earlier that I thought was hilarious. I'm not going to let that go.
Oh, please do.
All right. So we're kind of streamlined here for the first time in a long time, which I like. What do you guys think of this stuff? You want to talk? Or you want to talk at the end? Talk at the end. Shan is sorry. The friendly staff at Tinderbox at Easton
sold him the wrong cigar.
Guided you the wrong way. You talk in part 2 what you think about the other one. Yeah, it's good smoke that you got. Cool. But this is the part of part 1. Again, if you're just watching for the first time, if you are friends or follow Tony or the Butcher and Grocer, if this is your first time watching, we do part 1, and that's going to be obviously what we've been talking about, where we kind of talk about the bottle that we have, which is Jefferson's Reserve Twin Oak, and then also the cigar, which is going to be the Undercrown 10 All Dekk'd Out from Drew Estate. And we talk about those, what we think of it, and you just kind of initial reactions, because you may or not have had this cigar before, right, Tony?
Not this one.
Yeah. Nate, you've had it.
Yes.
I've had it. The bottle, new to me. You guys?
New to me.
I've never had this one.
Yeah. So it's a fresh take on that. It's an honest review. But at the end of part 1, before we get into part 2, And part 2 is going to be a life topic typically. And we kind of went off of the whole butcher thing, or I did, calling it a cut above. So that's going to be a topic for part 2. But before we get into that, we do a rating. So it's 10 being the best. There's 3 different ratings: the whiskey, the cigar, and then the pairing.
Okay.
So you rate it out of 10 being the best. We can go to the live audience if you guys want to jump in there. Are you guys texting each other? You want to? We can go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think.
Where you go?
Yeah.
No, they're playing Angry Birds.
He's playing Angry Birds. I don't know what he's doing. Shopping for
RVs.
Good.
Multitask though. We hear you. So the
Better than driving 2 hours to look at one you didn't want, right?
Yeah. So cigar wise,
Oof.
oh, here comes the rain.
All right.
Probably one of my favorites.
Maybe down a little bit.
Damn.
We got a thunderstorm rolling through, so it might pick up on the mic.
So Nate, you
Ambiance.
turned me on to this cigar a few months ago, and I love it. It's probably one of my favorites. Very nice. It's not really. Is it a medium? Light.
I'd actually say medium full. I'd say
Medium
medium
full?
plus. Yeah.
It's got a nice retrohale. I think like taking a hit of it and then drinking. Really, I think they work together. They pair very well together. So I'll give a cigar like a 9. I really like them. I actually like this too. This is really nice and sweet. You get the caramel and the vanilla for sure on the taste. Not much of a burn at all, especially if you start drinking for a little bit. It completely goes away. So Jefferson alone, I would give that an 8.5, and then a pairing a 9. So I think they do well together.
The whiskey was
8.5,
and the cigar
9,
And the
pairing
pairing?
was 9.
9. Got it. Tony, how about you?
Well, I've been looking at this bourbon for like 8 months in my office or
Trying to
longer.
figure out who the hell gave that.
Yeah,
to
I don't
me.
know who gave this to me, but it was a great gift. I guess I know why they picked it. It's so I pretty much always base bourbons off my number 10, which is Rowan's Creek,
Okay,
which is my
which is what you wanted to
all-time
bring.
favorite. Super caramelly, it's awesome. So I would give this one probably around an 8. And then the cigar, I'd probably give. It's tough because I like those Connecticut so much, and that's just kind of my.
You've been
jam.
smoking a lot of fuller bodied stuff though.
Yeah.
So you're kind of all over the board.
Well,
but
that what was it? The Digger? Is that the
Digger's
big-
very
that thing?
full bodied.
Listen,
Middle of the day.
if you ever go there,
That's
you
when
need
you're doing your
to, and
bills.
you
at
need
the-
to get some work done. Go have a Digger. You question your life on your drive home.
I don't remember drinking anything.
Oh man, wow, that thing was good. I've had a couple of those since.
Good.
But I'd probably go about 8 on this. It's not really my perfect style cigar, but but the pairing I'd give a 9. I mean, it just to me the two just match up perfect. I mean, for a blind guess, like, and honestly, I don't think I would give Rowan's Creek the same pairing number.
You don't know if it would. Pair
I don't think
as
it would
well.
pair as well at all.
Okay.
Because Rowan's Creek is just so kind of nuanced and has a lot going on to it,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So, but yeah, I think the two together are better than the two apart. You know what I'm saying?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that with the pairing, I mean, we talk about that a good pairing can be that you enjoy both of them. They don't take anything away from each other, but they don't really enhance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're just
Nope.
kind of like they
Yep.
stand up next to each other. Hey, they're both good. It's a good pairing.
Yep.
It's just a fine pairing. Sometimes it really hinders one or the other. And it's like the cigar is really good. I think the whiskey is really good, but together it kind of really hurts the whiskey or it
Mhm.
hurts the cigar or whatever. So, and then you have the ones that obviously enhance it.
Yeah.
You feel like it brings, which it sounds like that's where
Yep.
you're at.
Yep.
Nate, how about you?
It'll be a little bit different. On the whiskey,
No shit.
so I'm giving my rating on the whiskey based on my first couple sips before I got into the cigar.
Okay.
And for me, I'm a 7 on the whiskey. Just the kind of spice that was on the palate. Like it came across like a hotter whiskey than 90.2 proof, but it wasn't, a burn like in the chest.
Yeah.
Just on the palate, it came across with a decent amount of spice and heat. I think it's a little steep for $80 on this bottle. So I mean, for me, that knocks it down just a little bit. It's still a good bottle. I don't know that I would pick one up personally. It's not necessarily.
You wouldn't stock your bar with it necessarily.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't stock my bar, but it's also something that if I was gonna have, I probably would have with a different cigar.
Okay.
As far as the cigar, like originally I was an 8, but I'm gonna knock it to a 7.5 because. And I've had it with every single one of these that I've smoked. I always end up getting a tunnel on one of these. And actually I get that with a lot of Drew Estate cigars. I'll get a tunnel in mine and it'll kind of burn unevenly. It'll eventually even out, but I'll always get this one little bit. Like you can see it, what's left of it. Like
I can see it a little bit.
So like sometimes I'll sit there and I'll really have to pull on the cigar in order to get some smoke and, make sure it stays burning. So 7.5 on the cigar. Pairing, I'm a 7.5 on the pairing as well. I like that the cigar does bring out more sweetness of the whiskey, but some of those subtle flavors that were there on the whiskey by itself, like that apple that was there initially, or that vanilla, that kind of gets subdued by the whiskey. So I like the fact that it makes it taste a little sweeter, but if I wanted just a really sweet whiskey, there are other sweet whiskeys that I could drink that would stand up to this cigar and not like if all I'm looking for is a sweeter caramel type of whiskey, then I could drink that with this cigar because that's not going to be subdued by this. But some of those more subtle notes of this whiskey that were enjoyable, they just get muted because of this.
So what's the rating?
7.5. So 7, 7.5, 7.5.
Okay. All right. So with the whiskey, I'm pretty pleased with the bottle. I mean, I like it. I kind of get where you're coming from, Nate. And it's like, I think it's a good bottle. If I see it on the shelf, would I always get it if I need, like if I was running low? Probably not, because I've had it now. You know what I mean? It's a good bottle. I think it's unique. I get what you're saying. In the first couple, you had a little bit of that kind of burn. I like the project. I think the price point, I'm of the opinion that we're going to see this happen a bit more in the bourbon world. If you are saying it's a 10-year product, I think that's going to demand a higher price tag, which in the past, I don't think it did as much.
No.
Because they just had barrels, like kind of sitting there like, oh, we'll do this and we'll call it this. And, it's 10 years. And you're like, oh, okay. Like
Russell's Reserve
is like a $30-some dollar in the state of Ohio. Then you have some that start winning awards, like, like a Henry McKenna, that was like a $20 to $30 bottle. And all of a sudden it starts winning awards. It's not a $50 bottle. It's like, well, it's a 10-year. I mean, that should be more. And you're like, I agree on that part. But if you were selling it for this, that clearly you weren't really factoring in that you're selling a 4-year product for the same price or more than a 10-year product. Like just from the warehousing side of it, like it just business to me, it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like cigars are the same way. If you're sitting on you're stating that, well, not this one, but another one from Drew Estate, like a Liga Privada. They really were big on the marketing on that it sat for 1 year, an entire year after it had been rolled. So you age the tobacco, you do all that, the warehousing, you do the business expense side of things. And then you're like, okay, we rolled it. Let's sit for what? Like, like 90 days, like normal 45 to 90 days. Like, no, 365. You're like, well, that's just taking up space. You can charge for that. You know what I mean? Like that, it just makes sense. When you have more age on a product, that means it was sitting somewhere taking up space that could have been something that you're going to get the business moving faster. So I do appreciate the fact that you got 10 years on the product, they state. Then you have another 4 months in a special nether barrel that, again, I'm looking at it from an expense standpoint that I'm going to give the bottle, an 8. I think it's a good bottle. I'm big on price. And if anyone's watching that plays the drinking game, I mean, for the price, $80, it opens up a lot of options. But I don't feel like, if I were to buy this to try it, just having you guys over the house and I'm like, all right, what haven't we had? Like, these guys drink everything. So and I texted, like, hey, and just like tonight, have you had the Twin Oak from Jefferson's? You're like, no, I'm buying it. And if we're sitting around, the fire, we're sitting in downstairs at the bar, and it's like, what do you guys think? It's good. It's good. And we have this kind of conversation. I don't feel cheated for $79.99 on a bottle like this. I think it's like, again, well, that's 10 years, all that stuff I just mentioned. So I think it's a good bottle. I would recommend anyone that hasn't had it, you see it at a bar, definitely order a drink of it. Yep. Then you can determine if you like it or not. If you're one of those that you like trying different stuff by the bottle, or you host a lot of things, or you like to expand your bar selection, definitely grab one of these as well, I think. The cigar, I'll give an 8.5. I think that I really like this cigar. I know I mentioned that it's my favorite of the Undercrown, but of the Drew Estate products, the Undercrown line, not a popular opinion, is one of my least favorite lines from them. I think that they're very popular cigars. We sell a shit ton out, of them, but for me, I don't typically smoke them. Just because, for whatever reason, the way that they blended those cigars, it just doesn't hit my palate very well. And that's fine, because, again, everyone's got a different palate. This is my favorite, and I think it's a good cigar. And I think I'm not having the same construction issues that Nate's having. I think this look, you are having the same? Yeah. It's smoking beautifully. I love the marketing. I think it's a good cigar. What I say, 8?
8.5.
8.5, yeah. Yeah, 8.5. I stand by that. The pairing, I'm at an 8.5 as well. I think that it does actually go well together. I think if we had a good rye whiskey, I think it would go maybe better with the cigar. Mm-hmm. Something with a little bit of that spice to it to kind of go with it, like have a stronger rye flavor to go with the cigar. And with this, the whiskey, maybe the Romeo that we're going to smoke next, I think that might go a little bit better with the whiskey as well, because it's more medium bodied, a little more like kind of woody, like, a little lighter notes and stuff like that. I think that might pair a little bit better, but I think it's a good pairing. Again, if you guys were coming over the house, if you guys are hosting, you want to try something new, this is not a bad pairing. This is one that if you we're grabbing that cigar and grabbing that bottle, I think you'll be fine. I think you'll enjoy the night. I think you'll enjoy the pairing. Yeah. But there's always that striving for a maybe something. Well, I can maybe let's grab this bottle, for the next pour. It's one of those things. Mm-hmm. That's one of those fun things that we've done before on the show when we've had multiple bottles, smoking the same cigar. That is actually kind of a fun thing to do, is smoke a cigar and have 3 or 4 bottles and do kind of like the smaller pours and just kind of take that journey on how that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, so that's what I would say on that. So with that being said, we're going to get into a lot more of what Tony does with the business, with what he's learned, what got him to this point, and then how it kind of can apply to you guys. And if you guys are listening live on the feed, hopefully you guys will contribute to the conversation. But the conversation can be a cut above, and that is kind of where you're at in business, you as a person, you personally, like as far as your personal life. But again, just kind of a cut above. What does that mean, and how do you get there? And I think it's a great tie-in to what, Tony, you do for a living and what got you to this point. And we'll get into that here in part 2. So until that, we're going to cheers to part 1. If you guys are listening to the audio, make sure you click over to part 2. And if you're listening live, stay tuned. You can throw some questions on the feed. We're going to take a quick intermission, but stay streaming, and we'll roll right into part 2. Tony, thank you very much for everything. Cheers. Cheers, and happy Whiskey Wednesday.
That's good.
Clear.
I like that.
Yeah, my wife had texted me. She goes, I was wondering why he looks familiar. She already follows your page on Instagram.
All right, what haven't I had here? This guy here?
Bologna.
Is that just the regular bologna?
Mm-hmm. I keep looking at that Mortadella and thinking it's going to go good with this thing. Yeah. There's nutmeg and stuff in there, the fat.
This is all low calorie, right?
Let me just
Bobby Hirschman says, I wish I was there. Happy belated birthday, Bobby Hirschman.
Yeah. I don't know if that's me or what. Which one? The
Mortadella.
Front?
Yep.
It's a little bit more of a little sweeter.
Mm-hmm. People watching on the feed right now are just like, they're just going to sit there and eat.
Yep.
Goddamn right.
Yes.
We also have pizza, so if anyone's hungry.
Yes, thank you, Kristen, for the pizza.
Did you get a chance
Yeah.
Not Clearwater, but
From Ybor.
Ybor.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, the barber pole, right?
What's it? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I thought it was decent. I
Thank
mean,
you.
it was a solid stick. Yeah.
I'm gonna order some more. I got their card. Get a few more from 'em.
Yeah. Yeah, I was not mad at it at all. All right, we'll get to the questions here. Eating bad meats. All right, Bobby, if you were here, you know you'd love it.
Yeah. He'd be carrying this over to his chair.
Ray says breaking glasses.
Bobby Hirschman. Yeah, he broke one of his BS glasses.
Mazel. For your birthday.
Mazel tov.
Hey. We got one question already for Tony here from Aaron. It
I'm
looks like
going.
you're
Yeah, I'm
answering.
typing. Yeah.
Can't wait. I can't
And I
wait.
think-
Should I just say it?
Well, yeah, when
Yeah.
we get into it, yeah.
Okay.
So when
And
people
Bobby, I
listen to the audio, then they can actually hear it as well.
And Bobby, for the next time you're in town, I think we still have that Crown Royal Zippo in the Zippo case.
He's going to be ordering cigars here soon. So he says he wants at least one more glass. So if anyone wants to, if you're in the local area, you want a care package for Bobby Hirschman for his birthday, we can go ahead and get it together. Shannon says no.
I was going to have Shannon take that to
You wanna
him the last
Venmo-
time
If
Shannon
you want
went
to
to
Venmo the podcast for the price of the Crown Royal Zippo, feel free to do so, and I will honor that.
$35.
I'll
Don't-
buy it.
All right.
I don't like the guy, but I'll buy it.
You don't like the guy, but you'll buy it. All right, cool. Do you not like me too? You can buy me some.
How do I make Shannon hate me now?
Yeah, right.
Well,
All right.
Y'all kick me out of the garage. I just show up every day.
That is
I'll
true.
show them. I'll just show up all the time.
Wasn't there like a month that you were banned from the show and you still showed up the next week?
Yeah, he's here. Yeah.
I forget why that was too.
A lot of different things.
I don't know. You good? You need to take a break real
I'm
quick?
good.
You're good?
Yeah.
Nate, you're good?
I'm good.
All right. So we roll into it. Gotta burp up the meat there a little bit.
It's a gift that keeps on giving.
It sure does. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is Beyond the BS, episode 224. We just finished up part one. We've been munching on some of this beautiful meat and cheese, as they call it now, the charcuterie board, which is so popular. And this is definitely, and Kristen's going to kill me, it's one of the best I've had. Not the best. I'm not trying to offend you or Kristen or anyone else. It's one of the best that I've had. And looking forward to visiting you and maybe, picking up one of these for the next party.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is fantastic, and we'll get into this a little bit. I want to thank our sponsors briefly here for part two. Same as always, Tinderbox at Easton, Columbus, Ohio. We are still smoking the Undercrown 10 All Dekk'd Out Toro that we reviewed in part one. And I also want to thank Altus USA for the Romeo, which is our second cigar. They provide the second cigar for part two each week, and also a contribution to the podcast to help this thing go. So we appreciate that. Josh Bentley, who recently got a promotion. Hopefully we can continue that relationship. Love Josh, love Altus, and we love having them be a part of this. You see the banner behind us there, Monte Cristo, Romeo Julieta, H. Upman, Aging Room, and they have a huge portfolio, and they work with not only their own factories, but other factories as well, like AJ Fernandez, like Placencia, some of the ones that we love, on top of their core brands.
Didn't know that.
What's that? You take that band off, there's a whole story in there.
Yeah, the history of the Undercrown.
Similar to kind of what I was.
Yep.
Probably better worded. But Bobby Hirschman says, come on, you guys don't know good pizza. All right.
Gourmet is good pizza. We supply pork to them.
Do you?
Yeah, it's
There you
really
go.
good.
But also the BS Cigar Company, the Gold and Silver are available. Placencia and Espinosa make those two blends, and they are available through Tinderbox at Easton, or you can contact the podcast. We'll point you in the right direction. If you need to get your hands on the featured cigar like the Undercrown 10, the Tinderbox at Easton does ship, so you can contact them if you're not local to us and you're not near a local brick and mortar that provides that to you. Patreon.com/BourbonBS podcast. You guys have been a huge support since we started that. and we appreciate that support each month. If you want to do a bottle, or if you want to just throw money in general, Venmo at Bourbon and BS. Not trying to beg. This just helps us grow and keep this thing going. Love doing it every week for you guys, and I get a lot out of it as always. And if you like the shirts, that's been a lot of fun. Buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS. The shirts like I have on, I have a regularly available color. The Pour One More, Light Up Another, We'll Figure This Out Together shirt. And then you got Nate on the other end that's going to have the BS Cigar Company 3/4 sleeves, white, black, and gold. And on the back, it's got the Spirit and Focus, the other BS logo. So that's a 2-sided one. Love those shirts. That comes in, 4 colors now?
Yes. There's the black and gray, black and red, black and blue. And then
that one.
Which, yeah, the gold on this one was more like a one-off. So this one's more like a bronze. The newer ones, it's more of a yellow gold.
Brighter, yeah. It's a little brighter, kind of like the original prototype.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Tony's got some shirts as well. Can they get those at your location?
At our stores, yeah.
Yeah. So it's the explain
cleaver.
the logo. It's a cleaver.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the ampersand.
Yeah. So it's the Butcher and Grocer is our logo, and so we people are like, shouldn't put your name on it? I'm like, I don't know.
They'll figure it out.
Do you see Ralph Lauren's name on his polo shirts?
I like that. It's good. Take notes for people, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we kind of have the same thing. Like, this is the podcast shirt, and like, you should put the logo somewhere on it. Well, it was on the back on the original prototypes. That's too expensive, so we kept it cheap for you, and there you go. Now, when you wear the shirt, you can tell people about the podcast and the community and everything else. So tonight we are talking with Tony Tanner of the Butcher and Grocer, along with other businesses, the Cleaver, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the two major.
Yeah, there's 3 really.
What's the third?
You just want me to roll into it?
Well, yeah, I mean, so the topic tonight, a cut above, we'll get into that, kind of what that means. But yeah, just kind of interview style here. So, I mean, you own the Butcher and Grocer.
Right.
And that's expanding.
Yep.
The Cleaver, which is the restaurant.
Co-owner of Cleaver.
Co-owner of Cleaver.
Matt Evans, who is one of my best friends from college.
Okay.
And then my meat processing plant out by the airport is TB&G Meats.
Okay. And you are
the owner of that.
Wow. Okay. So kind of a lot of synergy with that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you provide to other locations as well.
we process whole animals.
Turn them up a little bit.
Sorry, I can get closer to
That's good. Yeah, that's perfect. Just like that.
We process whole animals, beef, lamb, pork, and chicken at our plant. It's basically the easy way for us to supply ourselves at the shops and the restaurant. But then we also have external wholesale customers as well. In addition to that, we do co-packing for our farmers. So if our farmer's like, hey, I'm going to bring you a beef and I need you to make me 600 pounds of beef sticks, and we'll do that for them and then brand it as theirs. But it's when we opened up in Grandview, we ran out of room space really fast. Whole animal carcasses take up a lot of space in a cooler, and we are in 1,700 square feet.
1,700, that's it?
That's in Grandview, yeah. And now we're in 5,000 at the plant.
Okay.
And so we do everything out there. We basically take the whole animal, break it down into smaller chunks, subprimals that we take to the shops, and then they cut it for the case. So your steaks, and we grind our beef every day and all that kind of good stuff. So that all happens out there and then gets taken to our shop.
How many employees do you have right now?
36.
Between all the businesses?
Yeah. Yep.
Including the restaurant?
Yep.
Wow. You guys are busy.
Yeah, we're pretty busy. There's a lot.
I was expecting a higher number than that.
No, we run lean. Our product is, I mean, you tasted it, it's in my opinion, the best that you're going to find as far as quality ingredients. The animals that go into this, all non-GMO fed, antibiotic, hormone free, pastured animals, makes a huge difference in what we're starting with. Mm-hmm. So our farmers do a great job to get us product that we can use and turn into some really good product on charcuterie boards. A lot of this can be on sandwiches. And so we're a little pricier than most people. And, people are, I get asked all the time, why are you so expensive? And I said, well, I buy a beef for $3.85 a pound with bones, fat, everything in it.
Mm-hmm.
The big box stores buy a beef for 90 cents a pound. So
is that just because, well,
the commodity market? So
okay.
when they're buying from the commodity and they're going to auction floors and pack houses and those kind of things, we don't do any of that. We deal directly with our farmers, and we want our farmers to be able to make a living as a farmer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we're in this together. We work together in a lot of different ways to get our farmers what they need and for us to get what we need.
So is it because you are direct, or is it because you're a smaller operation than the big boys, or is it both?
As far as our pricing?
Yeah.
It's really, so if you've ever watched any documentary on factory farming, it's not as labor intensive as like Scott at New Creation Farm, who's out on his farm every day, moving beef to different parts of the pasture, getting them pulled into different places. At other places, the commodity guys, it's just a feedlot, and they're just standing there, sometimes on concrete, sometimes on slanted concrete. So all the waste runs into a trough and gets pushed out. It's not a great way for an animal to live. I'm a hunter, so I love animals, but it kind of grosses you out when you think about
where the meat comes
something
from, right?
living like that just to feed us. And I say this all the time. We were all taught, I'm 51, and I think they still teach us that you are what you eat. But it always seems to start.
Getting back to that. Yeah.
It all seems to start with what we eat, and nobody ever takes it back to what you're eating ate.
Right.
And so there's no reason why it shouldn't start all the way back there. It's actually where it should start. I mean, if you're going to eat things that are eating garbage, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So it starts way back at the beginning.
Side thing about that, like we had a comment from Ray about lamb. You guys do lamb.
Mm-hmm.
He's living in Vietnam. He's from the UK. He says Americans don't like lamb.
And then all of a sudden multiple people are like, I like lamb.
Americans don't like mutton.
Explain the difference.
So mutton is over a year old.
Okay.
So that's an old lamb. People use it. People serve it. I always said that the whole reason that mint jelly exists is for mutton only. The best story about our lamb, and it's a quick story. We had this. It was
we
probably
have no rules here. You can tell stories
it was
all
probably
night long.
our second year in business. There was this little old lady. I mean, she was just tiny and barely spoke, but she was shopping European style. She was in our shop every single day.
Yeah,
and she was buying lamb every single day. And the weekend came, and she came in with her family, and I knew the rest of them. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Oh, I didn't know you guys knew each other." She goes, "Well, this is my mom. She's in from Australia." And I said, "Well, you must really like our lamb. You're in here all the time." She says, "It's the best lamb I've ever had." And I'm like, "Whoa! I mean, you're from Australia."
That's really cool.
What? And her daughter said, "You want to hear something that will make you even more amazed?" I said, "What's that?" She goes, "We're lamb farmers in New Zealand." And I was like, "I'm like, who do I give the keys to?" I mean, her mom was like, "Yeah, we raise lambs, and this is better than what we do." It's really because of the way we buy. We had our first price increase from our farmers in 6 years, and it's basically fertilizer, feed, and transportation.
Yeah, they can't get away from it, just like every other industry, right? I mean, they try to, especially because you are trying to take care of them. So I do want to talk a little bit about, or you have to go ahead.
Well, so I was going to comment back to Ray's comment about Americans don't like lamb. If you remember the Smoking 10 event, what's the one food item on the lamb lollipops? Everyone loves those damn lamb lollipops. And like Fido had even said that at one point, like, with the way prices are, we may not be able to do lamb next year. But then there was so much talk about the lamb lollipops, and one of the managers is like, "Well, I guess we're doing lamb again next year." Like, Ray, you were at the Smoking 10 event. Everyone loved those lamb lollipops.
Part of it too is this price, the American side of it, if you will, and I'm sure it's not exclusive to the U.S., but I mean, lamb is more expensive.
Yeah,
I'm like, we did get to a point. It's funny that you say that, Tony, about the fact that like, you think people are still taught like you are what you eat. I feel as though like from that fast food era boom that really I think peaked in the 80s and 90s, where it was like, oh yeah, we can do fast food, and they were still getting that transition of figuring out how to make it fast food, how to get to the masses, you know what I mean, as opposed to just do the local mom and pop restaurants. And you say like, the European style. That was a point where in a lot of the big cities you would go every day or every other day. You don't go to your Kroger or your Giant Eagle or whatever, Jewel or whatever, wherever you're at. You don't go to that, and that's your weekly visit, and then you have your own big freezer. You have your, you know what I mean? So it got to that point, but I think that there was a big part of that is that it was all about the cost. So you're eating, and I'm not even bringing in the frozen dinners, where it really peaked, where it was like, how do we get this where it's mass produced? And it's like ton of preservatives, ton of sodium. It's going to taste good. Then the microwave comes out, and you're like, then you just throw it in the microwave, and it's like TV dinner trays. It's like, it was just this like kind of this, I think it fed on itself, where it's like you are what you eat, but it's because you're buying that because of the marketing and how cheap it is and everything else. I mean, that's a big part of that, where I also think that not to go down this whole tangent here, but you look at like the lower income to be able to feed a family of however many people, 2, 4, 6, 8, whatever it is, a box of like pastaroni, which is all carbs, fat, preservatives, sodium, all sorts. It's not good for you. That's a daily thing. And then you look at then the health results from that. So, I mean, at some point it gets to that where I think we're getting back to that point now where for a lot of people in the US especially is that they are looking at that. You see a lot of, the nutritional facts. Now, not many people look at that, but major restaurants, including fast food, including the chains, they are putting on, you can look up, like one of our neighbors is P.F. Chang's, which is a big chain, right? And you can, if you search P.F. Chang's, well, you have to search on Google P.F. Chang's nutritional facts, allergen facts, and all that stuff. And they have it all published there. And when you read that, you order differently.
Yeah.
You really do. You're like, oh, my favorite dish. Like, and you're like 80 some grams of fat. Like, what? You know what I mean? You think about that stuff. So, but when it comes down to what you're doing, it's not as like, yes, if you want to look at that for the nutritional side, but it's, you go back that chain to the farming side of it. So it's okay to have like meat. It's okay to have the cheeses. It's okay to have the fats, the little bit of carbs and all that stuff. But it's not the process in a sense. Like,
and the, we're more expensive on meat. We're always going to be more expensive on meat. I say this all the time, that if you didn't understand how fragile our food system is during COVID, you're just never going to get it. Yeah. We were open the entire time during the pandemic. When the meat shortage happened, we never had a meat shortage.
Because you had,
yeah, I mean, source. we always were getting it. We had lines out the door, which was awesome. And by the way, if anybody wants to create lines out the door now, we'd love it. But I use our chicken as a great example because our chicken's 100% pastured and it's pink. So, it's not this white dipped, trying to make it white as you can make it. So people, you get a whole chicken. And it's, I think we charge $5.99 a pound for a whole chicken. They're about 4 pounds. Well, you can get 4 meals out of that thing if you know what you're doing. I mean, we'll break that thing down. We'll give you the carcass. Take the carcass home, make chicken noodle soup, and you got another 2 days worth of food. Mm-hmm. And, and there's the whole thing, home ec is gone. They don't do that anymore. So nobody's learning how to cook.
Those are, the electives that they took away, right?
But Google's a great resource. I mean, you can find a recipe for anything.
Yep.
But like talking about lamb, we use every bit of that lamb that we save all the necks, we save all the heads, because every once in a while some chef will be like, "Hey, you got any lamb heads?" We're like, "How many you want?" I mean, we got a freezer full of them. Lamb, because there's not a bunch you get off of it, but you can do stuff with it. We make lamb bacon, and
Ooh.
And people, because the belly, people were like, what do you do with that? I'm like, you just fry it up like bacon. If you don't like pork, you get bacon, and we make beef bacon. I mean, there's things we work very hard to use every bit of the animal because our farmer worked his butt off.
I'm getting from the podcast
I mean,
ever.
I can hear Shannon's stomach growling from over here.
And it's amazing stuff. I mean,
you're not letting stuff go to waste.
Yeah.
You are utilizing every bit of that animal that you can.
And that's the key for us being what we are. That's how we can keep our prices at least somewhat stable. We can use the whole thing. We make dog bones. We smoke bones. We turn them into dog bones. We put them in the box. Yeah. And the dogs freaking love them. The parents love them because your dog will not bother you as long as that bone is in one piece. They typically hide them. I mean, it's crazy, but
now I got multiple reasons to come see you.
And so our goal
here comes another Tony.
Has always
Tony meets
been
Tony.
to have as little waste as possible. So down the plaza from where our plant is a candle company, and they make soap for us with our tallow from the beef tallow.
Okay.
And they make candles. And I mean, there's no toxins in it. It's clean. You can burn it forever. I burn one in my house almost every day. And but when you look at food cost and what I'll give you an example, like these things. If you look at a Slim Jim and the ones that you get for like 99 cents.
Yeah, Macho Man Randy Savage.
Take that thing and price it out per pound. It's about $30 a pound.
Yeah.
And so every time I go in and I find beef jerky or anything, I take pictures, I send to the plant. I'm like, look what they're charging for this garbage. And it is garbage. I mean, you look at the recipe, what they put in it. It's like, oh yeah, well, I'm getting all my protein. I'm like, well, yeah, but you're also getting something you can't pronounce.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like you squeeze it and you just see all the grease drip out the end of it.
All right, I'll have a piece. Fine.
But
I'll have a piece.
But when you talk about food, and I've always said, and I say this probably because I want to sell more meat, but food should really be the second highest budget item in your household after your mortgage. I mean, if your car payment is that much more than what you're feeding yourself, that car can be replaced.
Yeah.
What you're sitting in right now can't. And so people are, because I'm no scientist, but I can read. And what
Good.
kills me is like canola oil, for example, was used originally as a lubricant in World War II. There's a bunch of it left over. Some scientists are like, well, we can take the color out of it and the taste out of it, and you can cook with it.
Yeah.
There's no cholesterol or whatever. And the American Heart Association screams about how great it is for you.
Yeah.
Who funds all the research? The Soybean Council or the rapeseed, people. But what I've always said is, if our number one used cooking oil is canola and vegetable oil, and it's supposed to be heart healthy, why are we not seeing a decrease in heart disease from those
because of the high cholesterol and the red meats?
You see what I'm saying? Like, that's what they say, but it's seriously like,
I'm sure Big Pharma has a hand in that too.
As these things are climbing in popularity, you would think that there would be a correlation of decrease of heart disease, and there's not. And so, I mean,
I think there's obviously parallels to life expectancy and heart disease is still the biggest killer, at least in the U.S., right?
Yep.
Contrary to popular discussion, but it is because there are treatments for that. All the things, and I'm a firm believer, and Tony, you're in the business, and you tell me, and I know like Ray will probably chime in from where he's at, but I mean, yes, we eat a certain way, but the population just has been skyrocketing because we live longer. We have anything that we do to our bodies, contrary to what you're saying, Tony, we have a pill that will combat that, as opposed to what we want to do, which is the preventative maintenance and just live healthier. And you're gonna die from something. But we do in the U.S. and other places a lot of times, and it's always interesting to me. Side note, like when you look at like the fast food places in other countries, they're not like our fast food.
No.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? It doesn't taste the same. It a lot of the times has better products in it than ours does. Yeah. But it's modeled after that because they like other countries, again, not popular opinion right now, but there is a sense of it over time that they model themselves after the pop culture of the United States. So now you're looking at it where they're all getting back to it. You remember that time when I was sitting, I remember seeing it. I was probably 2015, and I wasn't eating fast food. I was really on a really big health kick, eating a certain way. I lost, a bunch of weight, and I was probably the leanest I had been in a long time. I was the leanest. And I was on a road trip with Brad Grimsley, who's been on the podcast, and we pulled over. I ordered a couple grilled chicken sandwiches from McDonald's drive-thru because we're on a road trip, right? And we're sitting there, and on the fence around the dumpster, now with 100% beef. Not saying what the definition of beef is, but the fact is that you are promoting that now you're 100% beef. And I just want to say, if I had been eating that for years leading up to it, I would be mad. But a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's even better for me now. Yeah. It's just you rationalize. And you bring up, when I've talked to you about your meats and everything else, and you're more expensive. That is a negative to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But if there is some sort of training that, or promotions that you can do, is like, yes, if you're just buying one steak, you are spending a lot more money here. If you buy this and you manage it a certain way, yes, it's still going to be a little bit more costly, but it'll lower that. Yep. Because you are diversifying what you're actually buying and eating and everything else.
Yep. And I mean, food waste is a huge problem too. We throw away about 40% of our food every year. I mean, go to any restaurant's dumpster.
Oh,
I mean, it's.
I used to work in the produce department at a grocery store. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's.
Just eat out of there, man.
It's just so like at our restaurant, our pasta dish is small, and people are like, "Oh, it's so small." I'm like, that is like a normal serving. Like,
yeah.
I could give you more. You're not going to eat it all. You're going to take it home, throw it in your refrigerator, and then throw it out the next day because,
that was the whole supersize me thing.
Yeah. And so we, the fat content, the protein content of what we make here satiates you, mm-hmm. right? You don't need to eat a ton of our beef sticks to get full. Like I'll eat 2 a day or something like that.
As you have a whole plate in front of us. Yeah. That's cool.
But it really,
it's for 6 people. Come on.
It's everything else that you put with it.
2 pizzas over there. Like I'm not waking up tomorrow.
Right. But it does. I mean, the taste speaks for itself, but it's, the same people that will complain about our prices will go to Jeff Ruby's and drop $150 on a steak dinner. And it's like,
people spend their money on different things. Mm-hmm. They really do. And I think that is an education thing. And it'll be interesting to me, and it'll be cool to talk to you just on a regular basis or have you back on the podcast for everyone. But as this year progresses, and if you're working with more consistent pricing on your supply mm-hmm. chain versus what you see in like that difference, at least for a time being, sadly, for the bigger picture, will start getting closer.
Yeah. Well, it is because like people are like, oh my God, the bacon prices. How much are you just bacon now? I'm like, same as it was last year. Like, I mean,
but there's a lot of businesses like you that could, and that money grab is out there mm-hmm. because if you raise your prices, your loyal customers are gonna be like, well, that makes sense. Everything's going up. And it's like, you could absolutely just smoke and mirror your mm-hmm. way through this whole thing. And you're like, oh, what used to be, $8 a pound, now it's going to be $12 a pound. And someone that comes in, you're like, well, it's just, it's where we're at right now. As a business, they may not even question it anymore.
Yep.
You're just pissed off buying stuff at this point. But that integrity, and again, I really do, we'll get to that of being a cut above, is the integrity side of it. Because yes, you could be a money hungry, money grabber business like a lot of them are right now. Or you can be like, no, I'm making the same margins and I'd rather get more people in the door learning about this so that, once maybe stuff outside in the big companies, they lower themselves again. They're not going to want to go save a few bucks on going to the big chains to get the stuff that we sell that's better for them. They feel better.
Yep. And that's, so there's been several butcher shops that have opened since we've opened. Macellaria and Bexley, the Hungarian butcher up in Worthington. El Toro, and I feel like El Saddleberg. And people are like, "Oh, you get in competition." And I'm like, I want a butcher shop in every town.
Go back to the way it was.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Well, you couldn't possibly feed the world that way." I'm like, we're throwing away 40% of our food.
Because you can.
If you
Honestly,
don't
because
do
we
that,
can.
we can do that, you know. And
Well, it's not just that we can; it's also certain FDA regulations we have to. So, like when I used to work for a grocery store in the produce department, if there were, we would have to look at bags of apples that came in and see if there were any that were, had bruising or anything like that, and we had to take those out and either mark them for bulk markdown because they had a blemish on them, or we had to throw them out. There's a lot of people out there that would much rather sit there and say, you know what, this apple's got a bruise on it. I'd rather be able to give this to a food shelter to where people who need food, they're not going to complain about a bruise on an apple.
Dude, that would
But
be
we're not allowed to, because there's so many regulations.
And it's funny that we're so big on regulating that stuff and trying to make sure, and like especially in this country, is that everyone's taken care of. But that's not something that the government wants to look into. And like, how can we do a safe way of working with restaurants and making a regulation that no, you don't throw that away with the food control and health code. You do. This is the final step on your end. It's not to the dumpster. It is literally you then transport it to this food kitchen.
And you talk about regulation to answer the question about that came earlier, I think from Ray, maybe it was about 100% grass fed.
No, that's Aaron.
Sorry, Aaron. When we first opened, I wanted 100% grass fed beef in the case. And the problem is we can't take a whole animal that's over 30 months old. And in Ohio, at least our experience, and maybe there's a farmer out there that's doing it different, our customers expect the marbling in the meat. They want to see that fat content, either especially intermuscular marbling. So anything under 30 months is typically on just grass is very, very lean. I mean, there's hardly any marbling in it at all. And it just doesn't taste like what you want.
Yeah.
Fats, flavor.
Yep. That's where it's at. And so all of our beef is grain finished. It gets grain its entire life in a mix of silage. And one of our farmers uses Jackie as brewer's grain. And so that's why we can get them under 30 months with the spine intact. If it's over 30 months, we can't take it with the spine intact. So basically no bone in ribeyes.
Yeah. I
mean, everything is boneless at that point for us. And we can't take it in the way we want to take it. We have to take it already broken down. And that kind of goes against what we want to be, which is a whole animal butcher shop. If they ever change the rules and let us take something that's over 30 months, then we'll do it. We'll do 100% grass fed and we'll see if people like it. Our customers didn't like it. Yeah. And so we had to quit carrying it. And I mean, there's nothing more disheartening than putting a bunch of beef in a freezer to turn into ground beef one day when you don't have to. And so we've been doing the grass fed, grain finished. People love it. The fat content's right where you want it. If you get on our Instagram page, thebutcherandgrocer.com, you'll see some pictures of some stuff that you swear it's Wagyu. I mean, it's just so marbled and perfect, but it's nature. So sometimes we get a beef that's lean, and people are like, "Oh, it looks awful lean." It's like,
just how it came in.
That's how the cow came.
And it's really cool. I mean, it gives me chill bumps because when you watch these animals, because you hear everybody talk about that's not a natural thing for these animals to eat. They shouldn't be eating this. These guys are out on pasture. There's one feed bunk and they go in, they dump all the feed in there and they come running for it. Yeah. I mean, it isn't like they're force fed it. They eat it if they want to. And it's really funny to watch because you can pick out the alpha beef in a minute. I mean, there's some that are just sitting back there waiting for whatever's left over.
It's funny to think about it that way too. Yeah.
And it just makes such a difference. And the whole reason I did open the shop was, it started with a buddy of mine, Rob Young, who died of lung cancer. And he was convinced that food was the reason that he had this lung cancer that was found in people over 75 and he was 43. And, at the time I was just like, yeah, whatever. I mean, I'm going back to Costco. It's not a big deal. But then I started watching shows and reading about it. And when we got kind of verified with what we believe in, when an Ohio State dietitian at the James said most, like 60% of cancers are linked to food, and not just beef. I mean, it's everything. It's all the stuff
what
that
you
we're
put in your
eating.
body.
Yeah. And so, I can remember when our first year we were open, that Christmas, we were trying to figure out how to have enough rib roast for our customers. And we actually contemplated buying boxed beef from a big supplier. And we just finally, the three of us just sat down and was like, we can't do it. I mean, there's just no,
Why?
Why? You just can't bend on what you believe in to make money.
Goes against your principle of why you got in the business to begin with.
It's our reputation is, I mean, if you come into the shop, there's a giant window where we cut everything. So you see you can get right up on it and see everything that we're doing. At our East Market location, our walk-in cooler has a window in it, so you can look inside of it and you can
If
see
we come
everything.
down there, will you give us a tour?
Absolutely. Yeah. Come out to the plant. That's really fun.
We'll have to do that and get it on like the Bourbon BS social media for sure.
Do some Rockies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can do that.
Can
yeah.
we?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Do you have like a stereo in there?
Oh, we'll get. Yeah, we got.
I can bring a
we got a little.
Bluetooth.
We got a little.
I can bring
I am
my
Tiger.
Bluetooth. It's fine. It's fine. No big deal.
But after Rob died, and I started going to a shop and found out that their pork wasn't actually their pork; they were buying in box pork. I started going to farmers markets, and farmers markets are great. I love them. It's a necessary evil for these farmers and the makers that are doing these products, because there aren't a lot of people like us or the Hungarian Butcher or Massillary or anybody else that's willing to do the hard work, because it is super easy just to get on a website and click the boxes you want of rib roast, fillets, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And because meat marketing is probably the most deceptive marketing agency out there, we could completely lie about it. I mean, we can say it's Ohio beef just like anybody else can if it came from somebody that raised it in Ohio. So when I started seeing that I couldn't get everything I wanted at farmers markets, that's when I decided to open a butcher shop, and I was open a year later and freaked out, still working my full-time job. But
you're like, whoops.
Yeah, what am I doing?
Why did I do this to myself?
It's turned out great for us, and we're growing.
When was that? I'm sorry.
That was 2016 is when we opened. It was July in 2016.
Recent. You're blowing up.
Yeah, and it's this 2020 was our best year. 2021 was still good. This year, and I don't know if I don't think it has anything more to do than just the general economy as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean,
less money to go around right
trying
now.
to figure out what you're going to do. I think we were talking earlier. It's, I believe it's a true conversation happening around dinner tables. Do we put gas in the car or do we go out to dinner? I mean, my truck,
it's a nice truck.
It holds a lot of gas, but my debit card won't even let me put in more than $125 and it's not full. Yeah. And so, and I'm buying that government gas at E85. I mean, it's the cheapest stuff there is.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at your family budget, you got to make those decisions. And, unfortunately for us, we're feeling it. And I'm sure a lot of other people are feeling it, but, I think I told you the story. I had a customer who drove one of these great big Mercedes. I mean, this thing was like gigantic. And he came in and he was, oh my God, I can't believe your prices, blah, blah, blah. And I said, do you still drive that car, that Mercedes? He's like, yeah. I go, do you put that premium gas in it, right? He's like, yeah. I go, so you're willing to put the best gas there is in a car, but you're not willing to put the best food in your body.
In all honesty,
he's like,
shots fired.
He's like, God damn it. Fine.
Well, I mean,
and it's been coming to us ever since.
Yeah.
One of my friends who owns
Sean too. He's been holding.
One of my friends who owns a cigar shop, he actually posted a story a few weeks ago where there was a guy who parked right in front of his shop, brand new, decked out, $100,000 truck, and comes in and asks for what the cheapest cigars they have. And he's like, cheapest cigar I got right now is like $6-7. And the guy's like, yeah, I don't want to open my wallet for that.
It goes back. People spend money on what they like, they're just, in my opinion, currently, and it's happened before, obviously, in history, they are getting challenged more than they have in recent years. Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, just question for you, Tony. I used to watch Dirty Jobs like back in the day, and there was one they did. It was in Vegas, and they would take all the leftover food from a lot of the restaurants, and they'd take it out to this farm and feed the pigs with it, and they like process it and do it everything. But I love the fact that they're able to take that waste and be able to apply it to the, is that something they could do here, or you could do with your leftovers? Or
well,
it's more herbivores than they are carnivores. Are they eating anything? Or?
It's super popular with brewers.
Okay.
So like our one farmer leaves his like big dump truck at Jackie O's, and as they're making the beer, they're throwing all the spent grains into the back of his truck.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of that. Brewers are always, I mean, I get probably an email a quarter. Hey, do you know anybody from a brewery? You know any farmers that would want to pick up our spent grain? I'm like, these guys live in like Gallipolis. They're not going to drive all the way to Columbus,
which is like an hour and a half, 2 hours
to pick up a load to pick up 4 drums of spent grain. You know, it's good in Athens because he's right there. I mean, he just pulls his truck and leaves it.
Yeah.
So it's a great. I always tell people when you buy our beef, you can either drink your beef, or eat your beer. You know, it's just a big circle of life. So yeah, it definitely is doable. It's just getting the farmers, it's a scheduling nightmare for them, to try to figure out how to do it.
I remember during the show, though, I mean, they had a big, it seemed like you spent a lot of money on the thing just to process it alone. Like they went through so many steps to break everything down to make it edible and make it presentable for the pigs and everything. But yeah, I don't know. Like you said, if you waste so much, then it would just be nice to see.
Well, to your point, Sean, pigs are really the only animals we eat that are omnivores entirely. Like they'll eat just about anything.
Right.
Everything else is pretty much they only eat grains and vegetables. Chickens will eat themselves or eat other chickens, but that's a different issue. That's not their main source of diet. Well, they just do that if they're really hungry.
Our chicken. I love talking about our chicken farmers, and if any of my beef farmers are listening, I don't mean any disrespect, but they're the hardest working farmers we have. They rotate their chickens every 12 hours on new grass.
Rotational grazing.
Yeah. So they're in these little, they call them chicken tractors, and they're probably about as high as a table. And then they're 10 by 12, and they go out and they'll just drag them 12 feet and they'll be on brand new grass. And it's so cool. They did a drone above them, and you could see 12 hours prior, it's all mud. 24 hours prior, it's a little less mud. 36, no mud. 48, just beautiful green grass. And because they're fertilizing and rototilling all at the same time. And so so our chickens are raised between May and October only. Because you can't raise chickens on pasture like that in Ohio, because our ground's frozen. There's nothing to get out of the ground, right? Sure. So, and they get supplemental feed. They have to, because there's not enough in our Ohio ground, because grubs, worms, and everything at night go down because it's cold, and then when it gets hot, they come back up a little bit, so they're on the surface. Crickets and all that kind of go away at night or whatever, and when it's cold, you get a cold snap, and that's over. And so, our chicken, I tell people when they see it, they're just like, "Why is it so pink?" It's like, well, white muscle is atrophied muscle.
Yes.
That's that's science. I mean, there's nothing to it. They're eating grass, they're eating grubs, they're eating their corn feed. And I was never a big fan of chicken. I won't eat it out ever. And now chicken wings is a different story.
Well, that's because it's delicious. And
that's not really chicken, but,
the piece of buffalo.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The chicken. Yeah. It's buffalo chicken. It's different. So,
buffalo wings.
But like at Cleaver, we do a half chicken. And if I'm there and I see people order it, I always go up to them. I'm like, hey, just letting you know, you're going to see some pink in there. It's completely cooked, 100% completely cooked. There's going to be close to the bone. There's going to be some pink. You're going to see some red, dark red veins of, because in the commodity market, they take chickens, they process it, they dip it through a chlorine bath to get all that dyed out. So to make it whiter. to get the blood and
I
everything
eat
not
chicken
white.
every day. I'm learning a lot right now.
I can't. I mean, the story that I tell to everybody that's in the restaurant and customers is my dad had his hip replaced, and he I mean, we can all admit as men that we're probably the worst patients in the world, right? Like
if you even go to the doctor.
Yeah, we're just the biggest babies that exist.
Then you're a baby. Yeah.
And my dad's just like, I just want some chicken soup. I just want some chicken soup. So my sister was down there with me. I'm like, so we go to Publix, and this chicken case is twice the size of your length of your garage. I mean, it was just chicken from one end to the other. And I'm looking for something that looks at
Like
least
what you're
edible.
used to- yeah.
And I'm just standing there. And my sister goes, "What's wrong?" I'm like, I can't fucking eat this. There's no way. So I get online.
Chicken
I
snob.
find some woman that's raising chickens in like 45 minutes away. I drive out to her farm, go back there. She's killing them while I'm there. Like I
Right.
pull up and
Nice.
she's killing these chickens for a farmer's market.
fresh.
And she goes, she's like, I don't think people visit her very often. She's like, can I help you? And I'm like, I was wondering if I could buy some chicken.
Comes
from
out with
you."
a shotgun.
Yeah. She's like, she's like in her plastic suit and like got this dead chicken in her hand. And she goes, can I help you? I said, yeah, I wanted to, can I buy chicken here? She goes, well, I don't have any frozen. And I'm like, I'll take those. I'm like, I'll freeze them as soon as I get home. She bagged them up and I bought 6 of them,
Yeah.
took them home and took them back to my dad's. And he's just like, oh my God, this is so good. I'm like, do not go to Publix anymore. This woman is at your farmer's market every weekend. Like, don't eat this. It's just not right.
So is it? You think it's? Oh, go ahead, Sean.
No, I'm so sorry, Steve. Interrupt.
Yeah, I
With the
don't care.
chicken though, is it? Because when I get grilled chicken, like if you get a chicken in like the breast and Kroger or whatever, it's not what you're saying, but it always dries out so easy. When I try to grill it or whatever, does this hold in the flavor and not dry out as much?
One of the things that they'll do, a little trick that they do is, when you go to the grocery store and there's all these chicken breasts in these nice little packages and they're all like 1.05, 1.04 pounds. Like they're just perfectly portioned and everything. So they'll just throw a little water in there to get the light ones lighter. Get them
Is
up
that the
weight.
saline that you hear
Yeah,
about?
yeah. They're like, they'll just put some water in there. So
Pump
what's
it up.
water do when it gets hot? It evaporates. So you're going to get that dry out happening. I tell people all the time because they'll come in, they'll buy like a big steak. They're like, oh, I'm so nervous. I'm like, you can go to Well Done and this thing's still going to taste good. I mean, I don't recommend that to anyone ever.
It kind of reminds me also.
But our meat's very forgiving because of the muscular marbling and everything that's in it. It's going to be not the best way to have it, but you can screw it up and still enjoy it.
You talking about the chickens reminds me when I was younger, and you were also talking about just how meat is marketed and advertised towards us. I remember there used to be those series of ads, and it was like pork, the other white meat. Like, no, pork's not white.
No, it is. First of
Pork,
all,
if you cut open a pig, that meat, that muscle is not white.
Well, now it is if it's been in a farrowing cage or stuck in a concrete box for its entire
because the
life.
atrophied muscle.
Yeah. So our pigs and our pork is. I hated pork growing up. I mean.
Really?
If my mom's listening, I'm sorry, but she knows it because
listening.
my mom actually does all of our spice blends for our sausages. So she works for us out at the plant. Cuts up all the spices that go. Yeah. She cuts up all the spices for that and does the blends for us.
Mom.
Yeah. She's a godsend. So
saint.
But our pork, I never liked it growing up because I always thought it. So my grandparents had property that was next door to a pig farm.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought that the pork tasted like that place smelled. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't get it out of my head. And so when we opened up,
Not a big seller there.
I grabbed pork chops and I'm like, what? And it is the difference in the fat. It's almost got a sweetness to it.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while, the spring pork's the best because they've come out of winter and they're out on pasture again, and they're just filling their muscles up with blood. And sometimes it looks like steak. It's so red. And note to everyone, medium rare pork is where you're supposed to be. Don't go. Yes.
Okay.
Trichinosis doesn't exist in this country anymore. You can take pork, take it to medium rare, and it'll be the best pork you've ever had. But we are all so conditioned that, oh no, you got to cook pork to Well Done. You know, it's got to be done.
White all
Yeah,
the way
yeah.
through.
And it's hard to get our pork to white. I mean, it's going to be pink no matter how long you cook it, just because of the way
There is that kind of stigma,
Mhm.
right, about like the
Mhm.
pink, like the pink chicken, the pink pork, the white meats, salmonella.
Yeah.
I mean that's just what's I think that's the way it was taught. I don't want to like necessarily interject completely, but I do want to kind of to shift gears a little bit of the fact that your integrity and everything you're talking about, even the grass-fed thing that was brought up earlier, all of these things, I feel as though they may be taken advantage of from a marketing standpoint.
Mhm.
Like grass-fed as a principle, like, you know, like you're talking about the chickens and everything else, like that sounds great. You know, like the organic thing that's still very big. It's like these, unfortunately, start like a lot of things. They start with a very pure, like, this is a good thing. And then it's like, all right, so what does grass-fed mean? What can we do and call it grass-fed? Like you were talking about, like Ohio, you know, Ohio grown or whatever. Like, what can we do to use this term that is the hot thing that is contrary to the negative stigma of the masses, right? And then you get into that. And again, there's a business side of it. That's what's so interesting. Because Tony, I know you. I don't know your business or you that well, but hearing you talk tonight, and everyone out there hearing you speak about this stuff, it's just this resounding. Nate, you used the word integrity. It's this resounding purity to what you're trying to do. Clearly trying to put food on the table, like yourself. You're trying to keep your 30 to 40 employees fed and paid and employed and do well. Because if you just like, there's business, you stick to your guns, then you fail. Like, well, you also failed everyone else because of your principles. And it's really easy to be tempted to kind of not necessarily cross the line and just go full blow, like whatever I can do to make more money.
Cut corners.
Cut corners. It's a very big temptation to do that because I don't want to say it's the easy way to do it. It's a way to do it.
Yeah. Well, there was a company out in California called Bel Campo, and they were, I think it's Bel Campo or is it Del Campo? Whatever. They're out of business now because one of their employees took pictures of all the boxed beef that they were bringing in from Swift Premium, and it ruined them because everybody thought that they were buying, you know, this local farmer's beef down the street, and it just, you know, it's so easy to do. But to answer your question about grass-fed, every beef in the world, no matter where you buy it, has had grass in its body. And so that's all it takes to call it grass-fed.
That's the 100% beef thing I was saying earlier.
Yeah, it's 100. Now, you can't say it's 100% grass-fed because then it has to be gotten nothing but no grain at all. But, you know.
Do you think there's value to what has happened worldwide, especially in the United States? Do you think there's any value to being able to feed people at a lower cost point? I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong thing, but I mean, do you think that there is a little bit of a survival
for
part
sure
of that?
I mean, one of the things that I've tried, so I haven't tried recently, but I want to try again, is getting a SNAP card availability. And people are like, oh, we shouldn't be letting them use our tax dollars to buy your expensive meat. And I'm like, why are these people less?
Explain that to people who don't know what you're talking about.
So the SNAP card is basically food stamps.
There's a lot of public programs for that.
It's very, very difficult to get. There's a lot of fraud. So that's why it's hard to get. You have to prove a lot of different things. And I'm like, can I just send you a picture of my store and prove to you that I'm actually selling things that people are going to eat?
Or send someone out. I'll show them around.
But it's hard to get. I want to get it because I don't think that poor people should be not able to get the right food
quality
for their
products.
family. Yeah. And so I live on the east side, so I see kids walking to school eating Doritos, and the whole time I'm thinking that's breakfast. I mean, freaking bag of Doritos is breakfast. But that's what they could get because typically they're unfortunately living in a food desert. The closest thing to their house to get food is their local convenience store. And, they take SNAP. And
I go back to, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, but I also go back to the negative side of like again, growing up, I'm younger than you by a few years, but it was when you were like at that, again, 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
I think that's really relevant.
Oh, it's huge.
You saw all these things, right? It was like cereal was taken advantage of.
Mhm.
Eggos, you know what I mean? Like those types of things.
Yep.
It's you take a product that is like a pop, like you're talking about breakfast, right? Yeah, Doritos is a bit of a stretch, right? I get that, but there are plenty of cereals that were out there. I remember
They're just as bad as Doritos.
yeah, or worse. It's
Yeah.
just all sugar. And I remember growing up, you know, and I had a cousin that's a couple of years younger than me, a few years younger, and my aunt and uncle, like it was like we'd stay over there when we were at their place, you know what I mean, growing up. And it was like, well, what do you guys want for breakfast? And it's like, I'm not saying my parents did a bad job, but it was like there was a bit of like the Frosted Flakes and, you know, some of those types of cereals.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
And it's like, we go over there and it's like, what do you want for breakfast? And they're like, I'll have cereal. And it's like, well, you got grape nuts. You got
Raisin Bran.
You got Raisin Bran. Not even like Raisin Bran.
Cheerios.
But like just bran.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things that's like, do you guys have like sugar? Because that was,
Lucky
remember, that was a
Charms.
big thing,
Yeah.
right? Growing up, it was like in
Long before
I was
you had
born in
Frosted.
1980, right? So like growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was like you literally had not only Frosted Flakes or something like that, but in a lot of, and I'm speaking for the suburbs, and I'm sure it happened in all over upper class, lower class, but it was that whole thing. It's like you had that sugar container with that little spoon. You guys remember that?
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
The
And it was like, all right, so
Cheerios.
it's kinda Cheerios, but if you had Honey Nut Cheerios or you had like Frosted Flakes or like Rice Krispies,
Put a little more sugar on it. And
Cocoa Krispies,
Yeah.
and you're like, you know what's even better than Cocoa Krispies? Cocoa Krispies with sugar on it. Like it was like we just did this.
Yeah.
And it was
Plain
like,
plain Cheerios was the only cereal when I was younger I ever sprinkled sugar on it. That was a mistake.
yeah, and then it was
Yeah.
so good to
oh,
drink.
the milk. Yeah, you're like, well, I'm getting milk too. It's healthy.
Yeah.
You're like, you're getting sugar milk.
Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm getting at is that there is a bit of an education part of it.
Mhm.
Even if you do that, and I hope you succeed with that, the whole SNAP program, but it's like you still have to get people to want to use those dollars that they have, whether they have it through their income, they have it through programs, whatever it is do they use that there or do they maximize it elsewhere?
Yeah, and that's the thing.
A big or it's a big hurdle
Because we do whole animal. We have cuts that are less popular. You know, we have one that's called the chuck eye steak, and it's basically the shoulder end of the ribeye. I ate 2 of them for lunch today. They're small. They're not very big.
I was going to say that's
They're like 6 to 8 ounces a piece. Sometimes a little bit smaller, but the flavor, because it comes out of the shoulder, is just amazing. It's $10 a pound less than the ribeye. And, you know, when people come in, they're like, oh, I don't want to spend that much. It's like, well, here, try this. And now we've got people that are like, they only buy top sirloin steaks because they're like $12.99 or something. And it's like, I can get it. You know, they're huge.
Yeah.
You can feed 4 people off of one.
Yeah.
And it's like,
or one.
yeah. Or yeah. I mean, I eat one myself, but
Let's be
yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
But
But
just follow my social media.
yeah, it's it's tough. And we want to be able to feed everybody is what we want to do.
Do you think it's ironic that, you know, back, you know, like Ray's talking about, you know, when he was growing up and how the butcher and, you know, that was the whole thing. Lower income used to be where it was like, give me anything you have or give me everything and I will make it to what you are doing as a business. As far as like extending what you have, you don't just throw shit out that no one's going to buy. You're like, you have this available. You might be selling to other businesses that are going to use it. You were talking about the breweries with the grains and everything else. It's like you have this mentality, but to the masses, a lot of times it's not there. You don't want that. You don't even want to see where like this charcuterie board, like you don't even want to see where this comes from.
No.
And who's eating these types of things right now? Middle, upper class people. They don't want to know where this came from. And if you were like, hey, if you guys buy this, we can also throw in this stuff over here, which you can actually boil. You can do all these different types of techniques. And they're like, yeah, no, I'm just going to take that.
Yep. So funny thing about our East Market location is we have this window and I'm like, well, I want to display, you know, in this window, I want a leg of a pig's leg hanging, some sausages hanging, and then we put a pig's head in the window. And
are you doing that currently?
Yeah. So we have sold a pig head a week at our East Market location. We've been open for a month and a half. We haven't sold 5 pig heads in Grandview because we don't display it. And so people don't know we don't have it, but people are buying it because there's a lot you can get off a pig's head. I mean, if you do it right and you take the time, you can get a week's worth of meals out of a pig's head.
Could you get a following from people like with like your social media on what, like, cause I'm sitting here, like, I mean, I'm not a big, like, not big on like cooking at home as much, you know what I mean? I love grilling. I love doing that stuff. But if I'm walking by that display, I'm like, that's a pig's head. I don't know what the fuck to do with that. You know what I mean? Like, is there something where
there's so much on YouTube and everything
right
that you can learn, and we'll even help you take out the jowls and the kind of things that people want to eat. But when they buy the whole one, the whole thing's $25. I mean, and you get a lot out of it.
I wouldn't know what to do with that.
Yeah, and it takes a special person. I mean, you did have one drunk guy come in. I think he was just buying it to mess with his wife. But the cool thing is
like the horse head in the movie.
Yeah,
you know
it's you know, we're able to use the whole thing. There's a dinner this weekend, and I think that they're going to take pig's heads to do this special chef's dinner as like a challenge. But when we can get rid of the whole thing, but it's so funny because it's probably in the East Market the most photographed thing in the place. People taking selfies with the pig's head, and people are like, and then you got, you know, when we were getting ready to open, the owners of the place were like, "Do you think we should have that pig head in for the grand opening with all these kids and everything?" I go, "The kids are gonna love it. Their moms, not so much."
Yeah.
And so but people are like, "Oh, I don't want to see that." I'm like, "I just letting you know, everything in this case had a face."
Yeah.
Every single thing in there had a face.
Simple education there.
Yeah.
All right. So let's actually take this to, in my opinion, the next level and talk about the topic of a cut above. Again, going back to the integrity, doing all this stuff. Tony, you've been doing this since you said 2016.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of family history in a lot of butchers, right? You know what I mean? Like when you think about those classic ones in the big cities and all that stuff, that's like generational.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yep.
So you're entering into this type of industry where you don't want to know that there is a face to what you're buying in the case. How do you keep that integrity? How do you keep that balance of what you wanted, what you envisioned with this? It's
just, so I always talk with so we have a generational butcher that works for us.
Okay.
Justin Schumann's Meats. He's 5th generation butcher, and he's a pro. He's unbelievable what he does. And what I tell all the new people that come and work for us and are working with customers is we need to always think about generational buying. And I want to think that I made that term up, but it's probably in some MBA.
Generational buying.
Generational buying. So we've got today in Grandview, we'll see kids that are 6.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were in their mom's bellies or they were in a stroller, and now they're walking in and they're talking. And I said, and you know, sometimes we'll have grandpa, daughter, and kid. You know, we've got grandpa, we've got the kids. Now we want those kids. And so when they come into the shop, we spend time with everybody. I'm like, get to know our customers, just like you guys. I mean, hang on.
We don't necessarily talk about, 6-year-olds buying cigars.
No.
I mean, like there's different legal sides of that.
But as far as the way you know your customers,
that's why you don't see candy cigarettes out there
exactly.
anymore. Right.
So
I'm just saying,
exactly. But
we are friendly to the children as well.
You want the generational buying on our end. Is we want those kids coming back in 14 years when they're having, they're doing their first dinner at home for mom and dad or whatever it is.
Yeah, where do you go?
We want them to know that we're always going to be there for them. I tell them all, I'm like, get to know our customers, get to know, and at this point, some people walk in and Betsy, who's at our Grandview store, will have it already wrapped up for them because she knows exactly what they're going to get when they walk in. It's just like you, when I walk in, you're like, hey, you try this one. You'll like this one. You know what I'm looking for.
It is.
For us, we want to be here in 20 years to have that 27-year-old kid who's now out on his own and, has been brought up eating what we provide and doing that for their families. So it's really for us just communicating with our customers, spending time with them, helping them. Because the most experienced guy that comes in that smokes things, he's like, I did a pork shoulder, I did a brisket.
You see that comment
It's
from
like-
Doug Ruffalo?
It's like,
He says, I live for pork belly, cure and
Yeah.
smoke my own bacon.
Right.
I'm ruined.
yeah. And Doug, we're in Grandview. You can come get pork belly whenever you want, skin on or skin off. And so we want to be able to, and all of our folks, we all have cooked something that's in that case. And when people are like, well, I don't know what to do with a flank steak. It's like, well, you can't take it home and throw it on the grill right now. You need to take it home, marinate it for a couple of days, preferably, and, and do those kind of things. And so we try to walk them through and get them to know every bit of what's in our case so that they can always be buying what they need for dinner that night.
So,
You educate them so that way they have options and
Right.
also enjoy what they're getting.
Exactly.
so there is a bit of a disconnect with I think a lot of the public out there is how do you transition? This is something that I think that is a big part of it. I kind of mentioned it with the whole, getting people that are getting, say, I'm drawing a blank, the food stamps, the
SNAP.
SNAP. Is that just in Ohio?
SNAP? No, it's nationwide.
Nationwide.
Yeah.
But educating those people, it's the same thing as that when someone comes in, I think we've gotten to that point. And I like the transition. So we were talking in previous episodes about the difference of where you just want things delivered at your house now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So you got that, it's like, even going to a major grocery store, you go online and you want to do this whole thing where it's like, you don't even get out of it. You have someone go through the store and you
I just have to give a shout out to my sister real quick. She just,
Angela.
Yeah. We smoke our own turkey breast too. It's an Ohio turkey breast from Bowman and Landis. Sorry.
No, don't apologize.
Thanks, Ange.
While you're on here. But I wonder, my lighter's running out here over here, but that fire over there.
Dude, I have fire. I got like 5 lighters with me.
5 lighters, they're not working. Got a can of butane up there. I can't reach it. But I think there's Shannon, you're fine. We got fire. That's all I'm getting up. I find it interesting. So you bring up the tinderbox, right? And you like that?
Yeah.
So what I find interesting though is that we had a customer in yesterday that was not confrontational, but it was annoyed the fact that they couldn't just walk into a humidor and help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people have been wired a certain way. He just kind of made comments.
Just
He's
slide
like,
that door
why
over.
don't we you have to go back there? That's got to be frustrating for you guys. You know what I mean? And it's frustrating for me that I have to be able to have to ask you guys for this. I can just grab what I want or look at it. I'm tried to explain. I was like, there's I took the positive route. So many benefits, we get to interact with customers and a lot of people come in, they don't know what they're looking at. Same thing in your business, right? You walk up to a meat counter or whatever, and it's like,
yeah, you got a wall with 500 cigars displayed on it.
And I'm always like,
or you're looking at meats in your place, and I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck to do with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like to grill and stuff like that. Well, I've grilled, obviously steaks, red meat, chicken, stuff like that. Well, it's like, man, I love eating salmon. Maybe I don't know what to do with salmon to make it taste the way I have it when I go to a restaurant or something like that. Yes, you can Google and all that stuff, but it's like, these are those intimidating things. I could also, in the cigar industry, you could Google and read reviews or watch a podcast like this in part 1 where you listen to these guys or whatever it is, you search it shows up. Yeah, I would like that. Or you can go in and you can talk to the person. But there are several people out there that they either think they know more than you, and they might, but they don't like that interaction. Yeah. We've gotten to that point. I think the last few years have been a big part of that. It's kind of accelerated that, where the interaction with people, I'd rather do it myself. But I also know that I've walked into stores even a big chain like a Lowe's or Home Depot, and I'm looking for something. And I was talking to someone, good friend of mine. His dad works part-time in retirement, right, at Home Depot, Lowe's, one of the big chains. And it was literally, we were talking about staffing and stuff like that. He's like, they don't even train these people. You hire them in. They're not like home repair people. They're not like, not like him, who he knows what he's talking about because he's retired. He's done shit. So if you walk up and, hey, I'm looking for this, it's like, oh yeah, let me like walk you over there. Most of the time you walk in there and like, I'm looking for something so simple. And it's just this huge, vast warehouse of a store.
Yeah.
Like Lowe's and Home Depot are basically like a Costco.
It's like a football field.
Yeah. And I remember growing up and we had local hardware stores.
Yeah.
Like in Westerville is Roush, and they literally, you walk in and there was, I don't know if anyone in here has been to Roush Hardware. I don't know if they still do it, but they have one person. You walk in the store and there's this like kind of a higher up like desk type thing. And there's a person there waiting. And it's like a greeter, but it's like this greeter that is on steroids where it's like, yeah, how you doing today? Oh, what can I help you find?
Zettlers in Grove City.
Zettlers is another one.
They're
so
awesome.
they have this tradition there, but we've gone away from that because if you're looking for a fucking like you flush your toilet and the arm broke and you walk in, you're like, yeah, I'm looking for
this might work.
I'm looking for this. And you're looking around and there you can't, there's no one even that works there. You're like walking through with other customers and you're like looking at like a grocery store, you're like looking at these signs at the end of it, and you're like, oh, toilets, that's gotta be where it's at. And you walk in, you're like, these are just toilets.
Yeah. Where's
the parts for the toilets?
You just take it
this
out.
This actually happened to me.
You just take it out of the tank of the display model.
Yeah, this actually happened to me. And what happens a lot of times is, again, this whole cut above type thing is that it's that personal.
Yeah.
Like you're training of people where you say, like, this is what we're trying to do. And you need to learn this stuff.
Yep.
You need to learn what they're like trying to eat.
Mm-hmm.
For me, walking in there, I don't go in there. I don't need to go into Lowe's or Home Depot a whole lot. But I go in there, I'm looking for a certain part. All I needed is a fucking arm assembly, universal, like, on the right side, whatever it is. And they're like, I walk down the toilet aisle and I'm like, oh, it's not in here. Like, it would make sense in my mind that at the end of this is parts for a toilet. And then I start thinking about it like rationally. I'm like, well, they want me to buy a new toilet. Like, I get that part. So I asked someone, and this all went full circle when I talked to Bob, this person I was talking to, saying that no one's trained. They're literally just like a go-between.
Yeah.
So they're making whatever they're making. And I'm like, hey, I'm looking for these, the thing, the arm, when you flush the toilet, like I'm just looking for that. Okay. Well, did you check the toilet out? Yeah, no, I went up and down that. Let me go find someone for you. I'm like,
who are you?
I did that.
Yeah. I found you.
I thought I did that.
I found you.
Like, let me go find let me go find Tony, and it's like, hey, Tony, where are those at? They're right there in the other aisle. I'm like, 2 aisles away.
Yeah.
And then there's like this like little small area, like right next to the toilet seats. I'm like, oh, I should have known if I would have walked through every fucking aisle of your store.
Yep.
It's like, that's not customer service. It's like, that's where I guess, why do you do it? And how do you get to that point where you're training your employees to get to that, the cut above where the value of this is not just the stuff we talked about tonight. And I think that's what's missing for a lot of people, is that it's not the fact that the meats and cheeses that we have here, the steaks, the things that we're talking about, all the behind the scenes where you're utilizing everything, you're working with local farmers, you're doing all that stuff, but the customer experience, where we've gone to that point where people were liking the fact that they didn't have to talk to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
They go shop.
They just grab and go.
I always brought that up with, and Kohl's is now, I guess, for sale. You see that, like they're getting bought out. But I remember like going into a Kohl's, and it's like, if you want to buy a pair of shoes from like Kohl's or, department store, most department stores now, you literally have to shop for yourself. And then there's boxes of
Mm-hmm.
shoes and sizes. You have to know what size you are. You have to know what fits right. You have to do all this stuff on your own, because apparently it was too polluted to have someone actually help you with that. You had to pay. It was too expensive to do that. And then you walk into a place like Nordstrom, where they still have that model, and they are literally whipping out that old school thing, like when we were kids. And they're like, well, I wear a 10.5. It's like, well, hey, sit down. Let me measure your foot. You're actually a 10 to 11, but you're also this width, and let me go grab a few things. And you sit down, and they're trying these fit a lot better. I would never have picked these.
And then they bring the bag around the counter to you. They don't hand it over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they just set it on.
Yeah.
I always hate that from a retail standpoint. When it's the
Dude.
customer interaction when someone like throws the
money.
down
Oh
on
my
the
God.
counter.
Don't even. I'm
If
like,
you do that back and you're like, here's your change, boom.
Yeah,
you're like,
you're the
that's
asshole.
fucking rude.
Yeah.
You're like, is
Yeah.
it though? Because I was
I-
just taking cues from
there
you and
is
mirroring my
nothing
customer.
to me worse. Well, there's two things. One is people throwing money at me. I'm like, you can lay it down or you can hand it to me, but don't toss it to me. And then the other one is if anybody comes to me when I'm working the counter and they're on their phone, I just stand back and they look at me. I'm like, oh, I can wait till you're done. I'm like, I'm not going to have this.
When they have the
Like,
Bluetooth
yeah,
thing,
I'm like,
and
I
they
can't-
walk in, you don't know if they're talking to you.
like, I
or-
want to spend
yeah,
some
we get-
quality time with you and like really help you find what you want. And I can't do that if you're talking to Joe,
No.
you know, about what happened at work today.
And we get that at the cigar shop. People walk in on the phone and we just like, all right, cool. And
when you're ready.
they're looking around, but you still hear them talking on the phone the entire time. And then finally they look up and they're looking around like, hey, can I
Can I get some help?
like, sure. Didn't
But
realize
think
I had
in
a window there.
Smaller atmosphere. If you have the guidelines and you have that I guess mission statement or whatever you project to your employees is like, you can be attentive.
Yep.
You can be respectful, and if someone like a customer walks in, now all of a sudden these are these new things that you still want to make them happy as a customer. Customer's not always right.
Well, and that was super hard for us during COVID because we could only have 4 people in the store at a time.
Mm.
And, you know, we could only have 2 people behind the counter at a time and 1 person on the register. And it was just kind of this assembly line. It's like, you start here, pick what you want. When you get to the end, we'll take care of you. And I hated it because it was like, I can't spend time with you because I got 6 to 10 more people standing outside in rain or heat or whatever.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of back to normal and, you know, we're all enjoying being with our customers again. And it's because what we tell everybody that new that starts, it's like, don't feel like you have to rush anybody out of here. And the longer they stay, the more they're going to see our beer and wine. They're going to see some other things that they might
Business
want
model
for
too.
dinner. And it's like, we see people every day walk in at the end of the workday just pissed off, and when they leave, they're happy. And that's to me the most gratifying thing.
Yeah.
It's like you came in here pissed off at whoever ruined your day, and now you're here buying dinner because now you gotta go home and cook it. But we're going to try to make that experience something that you'll enjoy.
Well, I think
while you're there.
Sean Anderson says, let's get back to barbecue. Well, Sean, you've been on the podcast. You know what this podcast is about. I'm trying to transition into a point that what does this actually mean in life? And I think that's a big thing of it, is that when you give that scenario, the biggest part of that is that people, I feel as though when they come in to your store, pissed off, they had a bad day, they have to have a good experience because now you're on your time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there needs to be more of a respect for your time. And when you go into a store, yes, sometimes you want to get in and out because you're thinking about a million things. And I just want to be able to grab what I need to grab.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to stand in a line. I don't want to have to talk to anyone. I know what I want. That's fine. But I think through that interaction with people in general, not just customers or employees or whatever it is, this is your time is valuable. And I think there's something there that there is that appreciation. You say that people leave happy. They didn't even realize necessarily that they were unhappy because they were so dialed into, I need to get home. I got to cook dinner. I got to do this. I got to take so-and-so to soccer practice. I have to do that. I have to go take my car and I got to do whatever it is. You know what I mean? I've got all these other things on my mind, or you're already even thinking about tomorrow morning at work. Yep. It's like, this is an opportunity to really have your needs met and respect the fact that your needs are important.
Yep. And that's probably the thing that I'm struggling with most with our growth is not getting to spend time with the customers. That's what I love it. I wish I could be in every place at the whole time we're open. And you know, you hear about retail therapy. I'm retail therapy on the other side. My therapy is being behind the counter, you know, pushing around with people and talking about what they're doing this weekend. I mean, they come in and buy something or have us cut something special for them. And, you know, first question is like, what are you doing with this? You know, and then they tell you, and I'm like, I've never even heard of that before. And then they're teaching us something, you know, so it's fun that way.
I'm kind of that way when when working in the cigar shop, like I love when a customer comes in and they're looking for recommendations, but they're going to hang out and smoke whatever they're buying,
Yeah.
because then I get that follow-up opportunity to be able to talk to that customer and see if that actually is something that they enjoy, what they like about it, what they don't like about it. If there were aspects of that cigar they don't like, cool. I'll try and be able to remember that the next time you come in. So that way, then I know,
Nice meeting you.
you know, I know what to steer clear of, or I know what you might like instead, and provide an overall better buying experience.
Yep. And that's, I mean, when you're in retail, it's key. I mean, if you're doing it the way we do it, like the way you guys do it, the way we do it, you have to, I'm always telling them, like, get to know their people, get to know them. I'm like, find out what makes them tick. I mean, there's nothing better.
You can sell to get one sale, or you can sell to get the follow-up sale.
Yep.
Well, we were talking about generational buying. I mean, that's a big part of it. I also think that it's generational, like on the other side of it, the retail therapy that you're talking about, Tony, is that you have this enjoyment of your job. You feel like you connected with someone.
Yeah.
It's the same thing on the other side of it as an employee, as an owner, whatever you are. You go into work, if you wake up, you're dreading work. You go into work and you're dreading talking to customers or coworkers, whatever the job may be, or what, like you're just going through the motions and you're unhappy with it. It's because you're not getting anything out of it. And again, I think, with the topic being a cut above, is that everyone wins when everyone is trying to get the most of that.
Yep.
And I think that's your personal life too, right? I mean, that is something that you do. If you want to get in better shape, you want to eat healthier, you have to educate yourself on what's going to actually get you to that level. And then you have to put the effort in. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you, Tony, is that, talking to your employees, with the fact that you are expanding. So your role as owner, it's transition. Yeah. That's a big thing. When you're a hands-on owner, you're a hands-on person of everything you do. You're an operational type of person. You want to be in the thick of it. Well, if it grows beyond you, like it is for you, Tony, is that you now have to kind of give up a little bit of the reins.
Yeah.
Still, you're in control, but you have to give up and trust other people to do things the way that you want them to do. And if they don't, then you have to be able to interject. But I mean, I think there is something there, is that to again, I keep going back, a cut above. When I was thinking about this, I thought it was like a clever thing with, the Butcher and Grocer and, everything we're talking about. But I'm not even talking about being like the next big thing. I'm saying that you need to, I'll use the metaphor, and you guys can throw up in your mouth if you want to hear this, but it's the fact that, you look in your grocery store, your butcher or whatever, you go to it's that you have that USDA choice, you have the Angus, you have the prime. It costs more to get that higher level cut. But if the benefit is worth that, then that is what you have to strive to get to. And I think that's how you live your everyday life, with you running a business. Tony was doing something that we've talked about before briefly on there, where like AJ's on here, the 75 hard, everything is intertwined with that. And I think that this is something that we can talk about with you on here, because that's something I know about you, is that you've taken this journey on your own personal life of health and nutrition, and also just your relationships and everything else, is that you take that level of focus and what you want to do with this business. And then at a certain point, people need to realize that if you're unhappy over here, then it'll probably bleed over here. If you're pushing over here, how can you transition it to be able to affect you over here in a similar way? Do you have enough energy? How do you have that? How do you give yourself, again, the same kind of thing, going into your store and they come out of there happier than they walked in? They don't even realize it. I mean, so what have you gone through recently? I know you were doing the 75
Oh,
hard.
man.
Hand me that bottle there while you talk about this.
It's
so
really, the growth of the business has been, it's tough. It opening one store was pretty easy. Getting the plant open was a little more hard. Opening a second store is a whole nother ball game. But 75 hard,
Why'd you do it?
Well, the reason I did it is because I had fatty liver disease from one of my blood workups, and I didn't know what it was, so I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, this is bad. Like this is really, really bad. And I used to cycle a lot, but the business really made me not put as much focus on being fit and doing all that other stuff. And so with 75 hard, it just really got me focused on tasks that I needed to do to try to get my health back. And so, I'm fatty liver disease free now. I'm happy to report.
Congrats.
My cholesterol is still high, which pisses me off, but still working on that. But all my other numbers were right where they needed to be. And so I consciously decided that I needed to get myself physically prepared for this growth, because it's long hours. I'm up usually every day between 4:30 and 5, working out by 6:30 or 7. Between 4:30 and when I start working out, I'm answering emails and trying to do little tasks at the very beginning of the day to like feel like I got something done. That I'm bad about the things that I don't want to do that are easy. I push off.
Yeah. And
then I take the monumental things and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get this done today. And then I spend all day doing it. And I'm like, shit, I got all these little things that I need to take care of. But it kind of put me back into a line of discipline that has got me back. I did the 1 million meters on my rower, which was fun.
That's cool. He'd come in the shop and he's like, hey, did this today. I need this many more.
Yeah, I had to do 1 million. I did 1,000,001 because it was like you did 1 million
in what time period?
In a year.
Okay.
And I did it in 10 months.
I was going to say, yeah.
Overachiever.
Yeah. So I got it over. I wanted to get it done. And so, but it's, I feel a hell of a lot better than I did. I can bend over and tie my shoes, which is pretty sweet. And so, and not feel like I'm going to pass out afterwards, but
not out of breath.
Yeah. I'm not out of breath. And, but it's made me, I think, a better business owner because my energy level's higher. I'm not dragging ass every day after a long day. But my days are typically 16 to 18 hours, and then I go to bed and start it all over again. And it's like I tell everybody that works for me. So our business plan going forward is to open up 2 more shops, one in New Albany and one in Shawnee Hills. And then I feel like that'll be a good stopping place for me. And then, the goal is in the next 14 years to transition into an employee-owned business, because
I like that.
If we do what we do and we're able to get through like this period of where the economy is a little jacked up, the business could be worth a lot to somebody, especially somebody who doesn't care about keeping the Butcher and Grocer in that integrity where we want to be, doing it the way we do it. So everybody that works for us is bought into the way we do what we do. And so I would rather let them have it and keep running it the way we're running it, because they all believe in what we're doing. And to me, that the day that happens will probably be the best day of my business, is when I'm able to turn this over to our employees.
Why?
For one, I tell them all the time, I'm like, I promise you, when I have enough money, I'm going to pay you more. Like, I don't live in $1 million house out in New Albany or anything like that. And so their success in their career means more to me than matters to me what happens with me career wise. You know what I'm saying? It's their family. I think that everybody would do anything for anybody in our business. I mean, everybody pulls their weight in different ways. Everybody steps up when, like, right now we're out of wood, and it's my fault for our smoker. And I told Chuck, who's in Grandview, he uses the smoker the most. I'm like, I'm so sorry, man. You're going to have to go get this. He's like, I got it. No problem. I'll just go pick up the van and grab it. I'm like, okay, thanks. It's just like my list gets longer, and I try to take, when you're small like us and you're trying to do, I used to work for George Voinovich. He always said, he was the governor of Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was on his campaign, his mantra was work harder and smarter and do more with less. And that's basically where we're at right now. And I'm like, I want you all to make six figures, all of you, including me someday again, like I want us all to make six figures. But during this growth time, it's like, we have to be lean. We have to be smart. We have to do everything that we can to get us to that point. And that point is going to take time, but there's a reward for everybody at the end of it. So it's super important to me that happens.
All right, guys. I love that because it's impactful, because it's a team thing, right? So what you're doing there is that you're not just looking after your interests, because you realize that to look after your interests, if you have a team behind you, which you do, you have to really value the people that are working for you. One of the things that I learned a long time ago in business is that when you can be the boss, you know what I mean? You can be the hard nose, you can have the goals, and some things are up for debate, some things aren't. But they're working with you, not necessarily for you.
Yep.
Every once in a while it'll flirt to they're working for you, because you are the one that
I got some things that need to be done this way or whatever.
Correct. I mean, that's like, if they want to start their own Butcher and Grocer at some point, like, all right, you go do that your way, but this is the way we do it.
Yep.
So there is that fine line there. But I do want to lead into the closing remarks here for part two. And again, with everything that we talked about tonight, and I appreciate you sharing a lot about your business. I hope we had, Shannon in the garage. We had a couple people like that are definitely going to come see you. And I think that is an immediate benefit, obviously, for you being on the show.
Appreciate.
But I think the bigger benefit there is that how do you take that into just life in general, so that anyone listening out there, that they don't own a butcher shop, they don't own a restaurant, they don't own the businesses that you have. What do you get out of this, of being a cut above the rest, or even of your former self?
Yeah, that's a tough question.
Nate, go ahead then.
Well, I'll say this.
Go ahead, Tom.
I've had a lot of, not a lot. I mean, I've had a few people who've come and talked to me, hey, I want to open this butcher shop, and we've helped them. There's a group up in Arlington, Ohio. They came down, toured the plant. We showed them everything. I want to share this with as many, like if tomorrow you came and said, hey, I think I want to open a butcher shop. I'm like, okay, just don't do it in Grandview, New Albany, or Shawnee Hills.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go?
Yeah, exactly.
And so,
yeah, for sure.
But it's helping people realize whatever their goal is. But, I tell people all the time, and it's, they look at, hey, I'm going to go do this, look how successful those guys are. And, it's like, look, man, we're just trying to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
That's our main goal right now, is business side, is to just pay the bills. And, and if there's anything that people would ever get out of us, is that we care about them as much as they care about us being there. And we want to be there for a long, long time. And to do that, we obviously need customers. We also obviously need a really great team, and we have a really great team. We have really great customers. We want more customers. I mean, it's amazing, like at the East Market location, how many people have never heard of us. And I'm always thinking, oh, we're the second best butcher shop in Ohio, or in Columbus. If you look at the Reader's Poll, Carfagna's is always going to be number one, because they've been around for generations.
Forever.
They've got the generational buying that we want.
Yep.
But we were in a magazine as one of the top butcher shops in the country, top 100. And it was like, that's really cool. And we didn't even know it was coming. Some customer told us about, hey, I just saw you guys were top 100 butcher shops. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Can I get a magazine?
I'm like, so those kind of things are super cool. It gives us some validity, I guess. But two things that I told this one kid, I said, be prepared not to sleep, at least for the first 3 years, because you will be, I'll never forget our first year open. A lady emailed me on Christmas Day. I got short ribs from you, and they were really, really fatty, and it ruined my dinner. And I'm like, so your plan was to ruin my Christmas? That's great. Like I take all that. I mean, every negative review
You take it
just
personal.
guts me. I hate it. And it's like, and if there's one that happens in the store when I'm not there, I share it with everybody and they're always like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't, they feel terrible about it because they know how our reputation is and how we want to keep that. And, I told that kid, I'm like, you just plan on it. This is your life now. And that's just what your life's going to be. And that's for anybody starting a business,
any business.
If there's anything that I would ever share to anybody that's like, hey, I think I'm going to do this. I'm like, well, you better make sure it's a good idea and you better be prepared to work your ass off.
Yeah.
That's what's going to take.
I think back to, I've heard Brian tell the story when he first started the Tinderbox at Easton. Like he worked 7 days a week the first 6 years that he started that store. I mean, he was just a small business owner. He was pretty much the only guy, so it was, he had that responsibility. He wanted to make sure it was going to be something that lasted and grew. And, you take that personal.
Well,
because, it's your baby, it's your responsibility. Like you want to do everything.
Food on the table too.
I tell, and I tell everybody that we work with, we're only as clean as our dirtiest room. So always keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody sees one speck of dirt, it's going to reflect on everything. And the other is there isn't anybody in that room at any level of that company that's more important than the dish rag. I mean, I'm in there cleaning. I do everything. And, I've got friends that have businesses. They're like, why do you work so hard? I'm like, man, there's not a whole lot of options when we're this size, you got to. And that's just, I tell everybody knows, everybody cleans, everybody works hard. And that's what we do every day. So it's,
I think for you, it's that mentality too, is I saw this, it was like one of those memes or whatever, where it's like, no, it was actually Gary V, if you guys know who Gary V is. And he was talking about the fact that, like he hears from these like small business owners that, that have employees. And he's like, these bullshit, these, my employees don't have the same, effort level, or they put the same hours in as I do. And his response was, he's like, they don't own the business. You know what I mean? Like they work, you're paying them to work for you. And like, you need to get what you want out of them, but they aren't going to be at the same level as you because they don't have what you have at stake.
The vested interest.
There's like, they can have, they want to do well. They want to do well with the business, but it's not like, you have to know your role in that. And I think that's the same thing that goes into your personal relationships, is that you can want more out of your friends, your significant other, the people that are like your family, whatever it is. But it's like, you have to realize that it's like, they may not have the same vested interest that you have because it's your life. You have the most vested interest in your 24 hours a day, no matter what it is, on what you want to get out of it. And you cannot expect everyone else to give you the same effort in your life that they are giving you. You know what I mean? Like that you put into it.
Yep. And that's what we, with Chuck and Justin and Nathan, who kind of run different areas, and Jay, I always tell them, I'm like, this is all yours one day.
Right.
So I'm open to listening to all ideas, but just remember that whatever we do today is going to affect us at some point in the future. And so if you're willing to put yourself behind it, then let's see what happens. And if it doesn't work, the nice thing is, I tell everybody in the shop, they're like, hey, I got this idea I want to do. And I'm like, thinking about it. I'm like, do it. What do you mean do it? I'm like, just fucking do it.
Yeah.
Like if it works, then we're going to be great. If it doesn't work, we just stop doing it. Like it's not going
to be a end of the world thing.
Yeah. But you own it, you're bringing it. You better see it all the way through. Don't ask me to go do 5 or 6 things to make you successful at it. I'll
Don't
help
come with
you.
me an idea, and then I have to do the work for
and
you.
that's it. And that's the other thing I tell people all the time. I'm like, just come to me with solutions. There's nothing. Yeah. I mean, I'll get these text messages on a Monday about something that happened over the weekend, and I'm like, oh my God.
So there was this business thing, like when I was in my previous career, and there was this whole acronym, right? And it was it spelled out basically when you fill in all the blanks. What do you think we should do? Because people come up with this, like these problems or whatever, and they come to you like, what do you think we should do?
Yeah, we got a problem. I'm like,
it's a conversational starter. It's like, don't just come to me with the problems or these hypothetical, like, oh, we should do this. It's like, cool. How? Now we're going to spend the next hour talking about like, what do you think? And I'll give you my feedback, but at the same time, it's like you can't just come to me with problems or these goals. It's like, yeah, that would be cool to be able to do that. How do we get there? Well, I don't know. It's like, well, you go back, figure it out, then we'll talk about it.
And our core leaders are that way. They're like, hey, I've got this idea, blah blah blah. I'm like, that's good. Well, it'll fix this problem that we're having. And I'm like, oh, I don't have to think about the problem anymore. Like,
cool.
This is great.
Beautiful.
Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah.
Thanks for keeping me up to speed.
Yeah, they're great. We have a great team.
All right, Nate, how about your closing remarks here with the cut above?
So what it reminded me, the last part of this conversation, the whole idea of doing things with integrity, it reminded me of my days when I used to do door-to-door sales. There were some people on the team that they would use whatever trick they could to try and get that person to sign the contract.
It's only good today.
And
like, you have to sign today or you're going to lose the price.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That was actually, was actually one of the things they talk about in the training. So you have some people going out there, doing every little trick they can to try and get a person to sign this contract. And one of the added responsibilities I used to have was listening to the third-party verification calls that failed and find out why they failed. And sometimes it was because customers actually didn't understand that process of the call. They didn't understand what they were actually signing. Like, someone just smooth talked them into signing a contract. What I prided myself on was I went into it not with the intent of trying to get a sale, but trying to educate the customer. And I felt like if I could educate the customer and make them understand their options and what the whole process was, that I would have a better success rate and those customers would want to stay. And there was actually a small business that I'm friends with the owner, and he had gotten taken advantage of by another company, a competitor of ours. And so he called me up one day, and I drove to his restaurant and explained how we do things, the whole program, what had happened to him with the other company, because I had enough information. I knew what had happened. And so he ended up signing. And even though I'm not in that role anymore, where I don't actually sell anything, earlier this week, he sends me a text message because he got an email from another sales rep because his contract's getting ready to expire. And obviously we want to keep them as a customer. And he sends me this. He's like, hey, what is this? I'm like, oh, that's your new sales rep. I then reached out to that sales rep and was like, so this guy's Albanian. He doesn't necessarily understand everything. He's always going to come to me every time this comes up. So you need to just explain everything to him. Just give him the basics. If he trusts you because he trusts me, he'll sign the deal.
Yeah.
But you don't try and pull one over. Don't try and just sell the guy. Like, you have to be the kind of person he wants to come back to.
Right.
And that's the whole idea of like selling with integrity that we talked about in the second part of this. The first part of part two, when we were talking about like the food in general, and there's other correlations.
It's good. Yeah, I agree.
There's other correlations with life where, like sometimes doing things, it may cost a little bit more, but it's more quality. It's better for you. My wife and I don't eat out much. I mean, we pretty much eat all of our dinners at home. We make food for lunch. We take food for lunch, and there's a lot of work and a lot of time that goes into it. But in the long run, it's actually cheaper than going out to fast food every day. It's better for you. You feel better about yourself because it's a quality thing. And I think that's something that people have actually started to learn over what's happened the last couple of years, is maybe I need to actually do some things that take better care of myself, because then, I may not suffer these other issues, or I may not be susceptible to other things. Like during the past 2 years, we talked a lot about comorbidities with COVID and like what were the most common comorbidities. And then we found out like, oh shit, if you just take better care of yourself, you're less susceptible. Oh, wait, we knew that about every other fucking disease out there. Shocker. It only
What
took
did I call that? Treating your body like a
dumpster.
Yeah.
And that's not a new concept. It just took something like this before more people actually realized, like, oh shit, maybe I've been doing things wrong.
Yeah. I'll take this. You know, the topic for part 2 is a cut above. I love the conversation tonight. It's valuable. I love learning about your business also, Tony. I mean, you're putting it into practice. What I got out of the conversation and listening to you, Tony, Nate, everyone, all the comments out there, is the cut above part of it, whether it be business, whether it be your personal life, whether it be your relationships with family, significant others. Like we talk about everything on the part 2 of this podcast, which is why I love this, is you have to have clear intentions of what you want out of it. Because if you're just doing the short term, or like, I get that, like a salesperson, they're the same salesperson they're gonna do well, but then they're gonna want more. And it's like, well, you did these short term deals, they're not coming back. You don't have any residual effect. You don't have the generational buying that Tony's talked about tonight. It's the fact that it's like you have to have clear intentions on what you want out of your side of it, and then be able to communicate it and display it to whatever that other party is, whether it be a customer, an employee, a coworker, your wife, your husband, your significant other, whatever, whoever the friends, family, like whatever you're trying to do. You can't just talk about it. You have to have clear intentions, and you have to be able to display those. That's going to rise you to that cut above. And I'll use a very cheesy metaphor with the steaks thing again, with the different grades of meat. I know literally it's because of what they were eating, you know, like you talk about the alpha and that, you know, that's why they got more marbling and all that. But it's because you do have to take control, because you will be better if you have those intentions clearly laid out for yourself, and then you're able to follow through and practice. And in my opinion, most importantly, be able to convey those intentions to other people that you're interacting with. That's what's going to make you better than everyone else, make you a cut above, make you someone that we talk about, like the business side of it, but it translates to everything else. People like to do business. They like to buy from people they like. It's because they're comfortable. You're not going to make.
A sales manager always said, when all things are equal, relationships win.
That's it.
Yep.
You can have the same price on something, have the same experience of whatever it might be, but they're going to choose you for those reasons that I'm laying out. The fact that you are telling them they feel comfortable.
Or you can even be more expensive.
You can be more expensive.
But if you do a better job.
Agreed. And that's where I'm saying is that it starts with you, and then it's about how you convey that to the world out there, whatever the arena is. So, Tony, I appreciate not only the gifts. This is delicious. We'll probably maybe eat a little bit more after we end the broadcast. But guys, cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Tony, thank you very much. Guys, check out the Butcher and Grocer, the Cleaver, if you're in the Columbus area. And also thank you to our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton and Columbus, Ohio, Altadis USA, BS Cigar Company, and you guys out there, patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. And then also Venmo at Bourbon and BS if you want to buy a bottle for the show. We'll do our best to find that. And then buyjack.com/Bourbon and BS. And you guys can get some of the swag as well and sport it proudly. Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.